Good evening, and welcome to the Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting of May 2nd, 2023. I am Briggs Simmons, the Planning and Zoning Chair. Prior to this meeting, minutes were posted and notices were sent to board members, commissioners, staff, interested parties, and applicants participating in this meeting. I will now turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Teresa Carthen to introduce and confirm the commissioners.
Thank you, Chairman. So, Board of Commissioners, we will now come out of recess from this morning's meeting, and we will confirm that we do have a quorum to conduct today's Planning and Zoning meeting. We will start with District 2, Commissioner Kelly Robinson.
Madam Vice Chair, present.
District 4, Commissioner Mark Alcaraz.
Present.
And I'm your Vice Chair and District 3 Commissioner Teresa Carthen. We are present, and we turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you very much. Also, we have members of the Planning and Zoning Board. If you would confirm your presence when I call your name. Our Vice Chair, Rob Thomas.
Here.
Teresa Knowles. Present. Oric Curry.
Present.
Brandon Penniman.
Present.
Frank Payne.
Here.
And Kirk Nicholson.
Present.
We also have a quorum. Allison Duncan, our Planning and Zoning Manager, will introduce the county staff, Planning and Zoning staff present in the meeting. Ms. Duncan?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tonight we have with us our Chief of Staff, Tiffany Stewart-Stanley, our County Administrator, Michael Coleman, our Managing Director of Development Services, James Worthington, our Managing Director of Transportation, Suleiman Rana, our Senior Zoning Administrator, Phil Schaefer, our Senior Planner, Jaquel Johnson, our Planning and Zoning Board Clerk, Johanna Womack, and our Planning and Zoning Board Secretary, Kim Waters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's a reversionary clause that applies to each rezoning, and that is the applicant, the agent, or the property owner has 24 months to vest the zoning change after the Board of Commissioners has granted approval. As far as tonight's procedure goes, I will conduct all the public hearing. Planning and Zoning staff will introduce each application, followed by a full presentation on the application. The applicant or their representative and members of the public in favor of a application will have a total of 15 minutes to speak on behalf of the application, and that would be 2 minutes per person during the 15-minute allocation. Following that, members of the public in opposition to an application would also have 15 minutes to present their information. That would be 2 minutes per person for a total of 15 minutes. After the opposition completes their input or the time has elapsed, public hearing will be officially closed. At this point, the staff will clarify anything that the board would ask, and if they're unable to do that, they would ask the applicant for clarification. And this is not a time for the applicant to represent their case. Following that, the board will entertain a motion. Our first agenda item tonight will be approval of the minutes of the April 4th, 2023 regular Joint Planning and Zoning and Board of Commissioners meeting. Planning and Zoning Board, after reviewing the minutes, does any Planning and Zoning Board member have any comments, changes, or questions for these minutes? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
This is Frank Payne. I would recommend approval of the April 4th, 2023 meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I have a second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the minutes of the April 4th, 2023 meeting, please signify by raising your hand.
Chairman, I was not here during that meeting.
You were not here. That's right. Okay. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chair, the minutes of the April 4th, 2023 Joint Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners meeting has been approved and comes to you.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, have you had the opportunity to look at the approval of the minutes for April 4th, 2023? Are there any updates, deletions, or additions to those meeting minutes?
No, ma'am.
Being none, can we agree by common consent to accept the approval of these minutes as presented?
Concur.
Thank you. The minutes have been approved, and Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. Would you introduce our first case? And I believe we'll have to untable it before we can make any comments after you present it.
Thank you, and good evening, P&Z Board and Board of Commissioners. The first case I have before you bringing back that was tabled was a special use permit for Mr. Redmond. Mr. Redmond requested a special use permit to allow a short-term rental located at 7513 Elderberry Drive, Riverwalk Subdivision, Douglasville 30135. Since then, staff has received notice that the Riverwalk HOA has voted to amend their bylaws to disallow short-term rentals. Douglas County is not a part to this covenant. It will be upheld to the HOA to take appropriate action to enforce their covenants. Staff is still recommending approval. Staff recommendation has not changed. Staff recommends approval based on the findings and conditions. The conditions as read again, the applicant must maintain good record keeping of renters, and if the house is to be rented out for a party, law enforcement is notified at least a day in advance. And the applicant must upgrade the septic system if they are or will be more than 4 bedrooms as permitted with the original site plan.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, Planning and Zoning Board, I would ask for a motion to untable S 2023-19.
Brandon Penham, I make a motion to untable application S 2023-19.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion about untabling? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of untabling S 2023-19, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Vice Chair, S 2023-19 untabling motion comes to you for approval, please.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, you have heard the approval to untable S 2023-19. Do I have a motion to accept that approval?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, state by raising your right hand.
Yes.
It's unanimous, and the item agenda S 2023-19 has been untabled, and it is returned back to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Public hearing on this matter was held at the last meeting before it was tabled, and a motion was presented to the county commissioners. Am I not correct? So at this point in time, Madam Chairman, I'll throw it over to commissioners for your decision on this matter.
Thank you. So at the last meeting, you will recall that the Planning and Zoning decided not to take up this matter, or it was, I believe it was not voted upon by Planning and Zoning.
It was not approved.
It was not approved by Planning and Zoning. So Board of Commissioners, it is at your pleasure. Would you like to approve S 2023-19?
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes.
I would like to make a motion to deny S 2023-19 on the basis that our county does not oversee HOAs. That is, that is amongst the HOAs and the state level, so I do not want to place our county in interference with any HOA.
So we have a motion to deny. Do we have a second? I'll second it. We have a motion to deny, and I second it. Is there any discussion regarding this? And Commissioner Alcarez, I'll let you go ahead and finish your statement.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. I just do not want to allow, or our county does not need to interfere with HOAs. I feel, and after speaking with our county attorney, that there's a lot we could open up here. So again, all HOAs should remain governed by the HOA and the state and not with us at this time. So that's my reason for denial.
You yield the floor back?
I yield back,
All
Madam
right.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcarez. Any other discussion regarding S 2023-19?
Yes.
Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you. Since this was not decided on by the Planning and Zoning Board, so every now and then the board has to weigh in. We have to be the highest governing authority at the local level. I get it. My question to staff is, I get the HOAs. As you guys know, I've got my 8th annual HOA boot camp coming up in August, so I get this. Let's clarify for the record, had there not been an HOA in play that was active, and this was like a normal community, what would be the position of staff in that case, all things being equal?
Staff would still review the case based on the special use permit criteria, and if it does meet the criteria, then staff would still recommend approval.
You still would take a position. And I just wanted to clarify that if it wasn't for the HOA, as Commissioner Alcatraz was saying, we may take a different position. I mean, we're all equally sovereignly elected, so I don't know what they would be thinking when they did it, but we could have went that way. There's nothing that prohibits it. It's choice. It's discretion by this board to respect the local will of that you guys are into a covenant regarding your HOA. So we just want to be clear. But there are times when you're not so letter of the law. Right? That it does bend. It's silent in certain matters. So just FYI, I just wanted to weigh in on that, on what this is, because we got other matters on the agenda that may be a little bit different, that is a similar same thing that's coming down. So I just want to clarify the two before we got further down the agenda. Madam Vice Chair, I yield. Thank you. Call it.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. So we have a motion to deny and a second. All in favor of denying application S 2023-19, please signify by raising your right hand. It's unanimous, and the motion to deny is approved. Thank you. I turn it back over to you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Schaefer, would you introduce our next item for us, please?
Mr. Chairman, yes. Next item is a request for Z 2023-18 from SCP Acquisitions. They request a rezoning from CGC, General Commercial with Conditions, to PUD, Planned Urban Unit Development, to allow a mixed-use development located at 3538 Highway 92, Douglasville, in Land Lot 135, District 1, Section 5, and Parcel 2. Size of the property is 26 acres. The request is to have a mixed-use development on a site right now that is currently wooded and undeveloped. The proposal is for 316 dwelling units total. 18 of those would be attached townhomes, 298 would be apartment units, and there would be about 8,000 square feet of boutique ground floor commercial development. Property was originally the subject of case 87-198, approved in 1987, which rezoned the property to C3 September 1st, 1987. There were not any specific conditions governing that approval, though the map does suggest that there is a C behind the CG. The approval was really just for C3, which you can see from here, the zoning map. On the left is the current zoning map. On the right is the original hand-drawn maps, which are our old land lot maps showing the annotations for approvals and the dates of those annotations. This is the overview of the site, the aerial view. Here is the topography of the site. It's kind of a challenge to develop from northwest to southeast. This is the site plan for the property. You can see that at the corner facing Fairburn and Riverside, what you've got is the mixed-use component at the front. In the upper left there are the single-family attached townhomes. In the back are the apartment units. This is what they provided us so that you can see what it might look like from the residential homes that border to the northeast, looking back at the property through the topography and through the woods at what would be approximately about a football field's length between the homes that exist there now and the proposed apartment buildings that would be built on the neighboring property. There would be a required undisturbed buffer. The applicant has suggested that a privacy fence will be erected along these property lines to increase the buffering so that there would be less of an intrusion into the neighbors that already exist there. And the upper right-hand corner is kind of it's a little small to see here, but that's the angle of view from the homes that exist there now, looking back towards the apartment buildings. This is an example of the mixed-use development with the ground floor having the commercial, the upper floors being the rental residential. This is what the proposed for the construction of the buildings, showing brick exteriors. And this is the concept for the townhome, attached townhome concept. again, brick, and then this is the multifamily in back, which is just multifamily apartments, not any commercial, just the apartments themselves. Here's a current look at the intersection between Riverside and Fairburn. You can see that the traffic lights and the turn signals. Here we are looking from the west side of Fairburn back up Riverside so that you can see where some of the traffic is going. The left-hand side of the picture would be the development. And here is a portion of their overall development plan to summarize what is in fact being proposed. This is what you're being asked to approve this evening, so that we have 216 multifamily community. We have 82 multifamily village, which is the apartments above the retail. We have 18 brownstone townhomes and a whole series of parking spaces. And then this is the requirements for units allowed in each of the developments. They provided a traffic study to show levels of impact for the project. It also incorporated a part of the study, incorporated data from the gas station being built across the street, which has a small retail component with it as well. Impacts are quite limited. And again, against the zoning criteria staff reviewed, the project does meet the criteria for the rezoning, and staff is recommending approval with following findings: that A, the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, the proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan categorization of this property as within the community village center area, incorporating a mix of residential and commercial development, and that the granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Staff is recommending several conditions. First, and I apologize for the lengthiness of this, but there's some legal requirements when you approve a PUD. Number one, purpose, intent, and applicable law. This planned unit development district is intended to permit the planning and development of parcels of land that are suitable in location and character for the uses proposed as a unified and integrated development in accordance with detailed development plans expressed in the overall development plans and overall development standards document submitted for review and dated March 7, 2023 and revised 4/24/23, attached herein as Exhibit 1. These ODP/ODS plans supersede regulations contained in Article 1 through 15 of the Unified Development Code, UDC, and supersede the regulations of the Douglas County Code of Ordinances, and shall govern the development along with any specific conditions as may be imposed by the county commissioners within the public hearing authorizing the ordinance granting the zoning request. Any development standards not expressly defined in the ODP/ODS shall be regulated by the development standards as applicable and expressed in the county code of ordinances and or the articles within the UDC, as each may be amended and enforced at time of development approval is requested. Number two, jurisdictional interest. The planned unit development project abuts falls within state, county, and extra authority jurisdictional interests, in addition to the internal controls of the ODP and ODS governing development of the property. Access to, from, and improvements upon Georgia State Highway 92 shall be under the review and approval procedures of the Georgia Department of Transportation with appropriate consultation with Douglas County Department of Transportation. Access to, from, and improvements upon Riverside Parkway shall be under the review and approval process of the Douglas County Development Review Committee and County Department of Transportation. The following stipulations shall apply. A, gating of existing public right-of-way is hereby prohibited, and B, gates to private streets from public rights-of-way shall provide a minimum of approximately 50 feet of travel distance from the main street travel lane, creating a queue depth to accommodate at least 2 vehicles. Third condition, the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the overall development plan and overall development standards, as well as the UDC, and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in this staff report dated May 2nd, 2023. DRC shall have discretion to direct staff to schedule the zoning action to be returned to the Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners to consider rezoning of the property at a regularly scheduled zoning hearing if the property fails to comply with the required conditions or other applicable codes and regulations. And final condition number 4, that fencing along the common property line with existing residents to the east will be required. The fence shall be a minimum of 6 feet in height and designed as privacy fencing. Fence shall be constructed of wood or composite material and aesthetically compatible with the context of the area. With that, I conclude my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, wishing to speak in favor, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record. We have 15 minutes allocated. That's 2 minutes per person.
Thank you. Good
Mr.
evening, everyone. I'm Joe Fowler,
Mr.
Post
Fowler.
Office Box 49. Allow me to introduce John Long and Brooks Young, representatives of the applicant. This has been, in my office, a 6 months or more project in the making. We've worked with staff, and thank you to Phil and Allison for guiding us along the way. It was not like it was at the beginning. We've worked together, and we think we've got a product that can be endorsed by both the commission and the Board of Commissioners. There was a county-sponsored public meeting on April the 11th, 2013. We met with maybe a number of the people who were here, and then we convened it again a week later for the purpose of further answering the questions that they may have had about the specific project. And there were a number. You've heard the total breakdown of the units, 316 altogether, 298 apartments, 6 3-bedroom, 192 2-bedroom, and 218 1-bedroom. There'll be 18 townhome units. We also talked about the commercial area, neighborhood, retail, small restaurants, related neighborhood amenity-type services. I will note this, the existing zoning is general commercial with uses under the UDC ranging from administrative and professional offices to financial, insurance, and real estate offices to personal care businesses. There are a host of things. The site, we believe, is laid out to minimize the impact on the subdivision. You saw both the site plan and then the lateral version, so you could see the difference in elevation between the two. There will be the expanded buffer and an 8-foot wooden fence. All the conditions that were read by Phil are acceptable to the developer. We have looked at the traffic study. We've asked the traffic engineer to make some recommendations about what to do at Riverside and 92. Those are incorporated as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. State your name and address for the record.
Hey, John Long. Thank y'all for having us.
Your address, sir.
One or two things I'd like to
Sir,
add is,
your address first, please.
I'm sorry, 2572 Brookdale Drive, 30305.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The only thing I would like to add is we did meet with the folks in the neighborhood a couple of times and got a lot of constructive feedback. Some we just couldn't do, but many we did incorporate. I think we repositioned some of our buildings to be as far away from the residential neighborhood, which I think zoning requires 50 or 100-foot buffer, 50 and then a landscape buffer, and we pushed it back about almost 350 feet to respect what are some dense woods back there that we'll leave in place, and then additionally plant landscaping as we get closer to the buildings. And then it said it required a 6-foot wooden fence. I think we're going to go ahead and do an 8-foot wooden fence just to continue to let folks feel that there's some separation there. You know, I think that we're excited. We think this brings a real some neighborhood retail into the area, but it's small and more smaller restaurants, smaller service retail that is really sole purpose is for the use of the community, both the apartments, but more the wider community. And it's a mixed-use project. It's integrated where you've got retail on the lower floors, and then we've created a large common area that will be between the buildings. It's a plaza for both cafe tables, but also enough space for families to play, just activity. And so those are the things that we've done to try and address and make this a true neighborhood development. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please approach the podium. Seeing no one approaching the podium, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you would, please state your name and address for the record first, sir.
Sure. My name is, excuse me, my name is Darren Bray. My address is 3290 Darby Drive in Douglasville, tributary subdivision. A couple of things that are concerning for me that I'm not in favor of this unit for. The main thing is that they're oversaturating our community with apartments. We moved there because we are thinking about our home values, and if they were putting perhaps some condominiums or a mixture of apartments and condominiums that would secure and sustain our property values. And there are 3 subdivisions, actually 4 going up right now off of Riverside for a total of 1,447 units. 2 of those units are not completely constructed, and they have not even filled those that are constructed. That particular zone or that particular area is very, very congested as it is, and there's a big gap for the cellular service there. So now we're going to add potentially 316 more units there, more people coming and going in that area. I don't mind development, I want development, but it's just not a good location. That particular location is just not good. We got apartments already down there on Riverside that are not filled, and now we have another developer wanting to put more there. So it's just, I'd like more information on the traffic survey, what they found about the traffic survey, because right now it's just overly congested. So that's my concern. I'm concerned about my property value. That's why I moved there, not to be oversaturated and potentially be transferred if they can't fill those apartments to subsidized housing, which I'm concerned about my property value as far as that's concerned. Thank you all for listening to me today, and please consider what I've said. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bray. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please state your name and address for the record, and you would have 2 minutes.
Okay. My name is Robert Holmes. My address is 3515 Palmer Lake Point. The main issue that I have is the traffic. Being that on Riverside, we have already added 3 large subdivisions, apartment subdivisions, and during the time in rush hour, usually traffic is backed up from Thornton Road to Riverside intersection is normally backed up at least a mile back. And no one has addressed that issue already, and we're adding 3 apartment complexes. Now a 4th one is coming. So no one has addressed either widening Riverside or detailing any traffic on Fairburn, which is normally backed up the same way. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the metro area where we wait till last minute to decide on help, doing something about the problem. Just like 20 intersection 20 and 285, traffic has gotten so bad, and now they want to try to do something about it now. But I mean, it's too late to really do anything, because once they start working on it, it's gonna make traffic worse. So now we come to the same thing in Douglasville, where we're putting all this stuff here and nobody's addressing either widening Riverside. I mean, we have, like I said, 3 apartment complexes, large, and you have warehouses. So these trucks are sitting in the middle lane, sitting in the bike lanes, and nobody's doing anything about it. It's just adding to the traffic. And that's my main issue with the whole project. I mean, I don't have any issue with it, but nobody's addressing the traffic or what it's going to do to our residents and our way of living, actually, because we have to deal with that traffic. And I mean, I know y'all decide, but y'all don't have to live in that area and have to deal with that. So that's fine.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to speak? If you would, please state your name and address for the record, and then you would have 2 minutes.
My name is, excuse me, my name is Debbie Sims. I live at 3345 Palmer Lake Point. In addition to the concerns the 2 men have mentioned, my concern is that many of us work from home. This project is going to take about 18 months. Not all of it will be building, but the time that it does take, it will be noisy, and I have meetings throughout the day, as many others do. That hasn't been addressed. There's no way to avoid that. So if we work from home, I work to get paid to pay my mortgage, and that is going to be a concern for me. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. Mr. Seeing no one moving, approaching the podium, I will close the public hearing in opposition at this point in time. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or the applicant or the applicant's representative?
Rob Thomas, I have a question with the staff first. Can you address the traffic study concern, or the traffic study itself and what it came up with?
In which case, would you like to know specifically how it affects the Fairburn?
Yeah, well, both in this section there.
So from the traffic study, the level of detail, so we've got an AM and a PM peak impact at 92 and, let's see, Riverside, which takes the AM peak period to A and the PM peak period to B with the signalized approach for westbound, and the northbound approach is B and B. The southbound approach is an A and an A. So you have a little bit of an E effect, E being 64 seconds you're going to have to wait at the light before you can get out westbound from Riverside onto Fairburn.
Anything pertaining to the widening or consider? Okay.
There was no suggestions to be widened. And in terms of additional right-of-way, the DOT asked for whatever they would need on Riverside to be done at the DRC level. So
If
when
they
we
ever
go-
decide later on to
Yeah,
widen.
so when we get to DRC, the exact amount of additional right-of-way to accommodate right turn lanes in would be done at the DRC, and we'll take care of it there. Yeah, I can't speak for what will happen when it goes before Georgia DOT for the Fairburn side, since that's a state highway, so I don't know exactly. But again, they're proposing right in, right out only on the Highway 92 part, so the Fairburn piece would not have a left in from southbound Fairburn. It would only be northbound traffic.
So to go back and make a U-turn and come back around, or how would that?
Or you would go out onto Riverside to take the westbound or the southbound.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, go that way. Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. Hearing none, Madam Vice Chair, I'll throw it to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, you've heard from the staff regarding Z 2023-18. Are there any questions or comments regarding this? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here, and thank you for the citizens for your input on both sides of the equation. Yes, Douglas is getting denser. Yes, tributary was part of the, as I call it, the broken promise for all the sprawl communities that happened, especially in the east of East Douglas. Right. I just had this conversation in my town hall. I get it. I know we wanted these houses and golf trails and walking trails, and it didn't quite happen. So there had to be some adjustments. There had to be some compromise. Those developers sold their properties. They got property rights. So now you got both coexisting at the same time. Not only just commercial and industrial, but in this case, you got more denser residential, single family versus more high density. I got it. I get what it was intended to do. I get, yes, you have to, everybody's not going to have, what they call it, 3 acres and 4-sided brick and $500,000 price points. Where will our children live? My 23-year-old and 26-year-old. It's $1,900 a month in Avonlea. So how do we accommodate everybody to give them an opportunity to live here? Not just the well-to-do. There needs to be housing options. Now for District 2, which I obviously represent, I'm very sensitive because I do live on that street. I get it. I get working at home. I get being in that traffic. I do. So with that being said, let's get beyond the, are we sensitive? Are we not aware? I need Suleiman. Is he out here, Director Ron, please? Is he here?
He is. He's coming.
Come on down. How you doing, sir?
Good afternoon. I'm good.
All right, we'll keep this real simple and tight because we do talk about this as Chair of Transportation. We do have this topic about the corridors that are important, specifically Riverside. Real quick, how long is Riverside? 7 miles, 7.5 miles?
I don't have the exact number, but I anticipate it being somewhere between 6 to 8. So I think 7 mile would be an accurate guess.
All right. So 7 miles. So again, I'm sensitive to the need for expansion. But one of the things we try to do is educate the public. Do you know how much it costs to widen roads and expand roads? It's the reason that you didn't do I-25 and 20 was it was $1 billion. But okay, let's talk about, well, how long would it take? How much per square mile? Now we just had this conversation in my town hall. So what is it? 200,000 or 300,000 per mile?
Yes, sir. That cost estimate is actually referencing resurfacing. If we're talking about widening, Lee Road would be a good example. The segment that is under construction, that is just around 2 mile, and the cost of that is a little over $20 million.
All right, so $20 million for Lee Road, which is 2 miles. This is 3-4 times that. 100 million?
Yes, sir. It would be close to that number.
All right, that would be the entirety of basically almost the entirety of a SPLOST, the penny SPLOST that you just approved, would give us about $160 million a year, give or take. That one street would take all of it, at least 60%. Duly noted. I understand. I just want to put things in context. So duly noted, it is something that I have on the list of that eventually you will have to expand Riverside. There's no doubt about it. That's too much density. You see them trucks coming? You don't see that cleared out land? I get it. This is important. I have to be sensitive to my lean is always listening to my citizens. Like, I got to balance them. But there needs to be equality in the housing options, which I think is important. So that's all I had to say by way of commentary. I'm going to ponder some more, and let's see how this plays out. I yield, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Commissioner Robinson. Any other discussion regarding this item?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Alcaraz, you have the floor.
The studies, when they were, Mr. Schaefer, the studies, just for a moment, please, sir. When those studies were done, was there a particular time of day that those studies were done?
So the studies have a particular format that they have to engage in order to cover all of the appropriate things. So there's AM and PM, and then there are counts, physical counts were made. The study, let me see, was dated January 16th, 2023. So before January 16th is when these studies were conducted, sometime during those months ahead.
Okay, was that, and obviously, traveling throughout this county quite a bit, I know that many times in the evenings, coming from Riverside to Fairburn Road, it is getting quite backed up down through that area as well. Have we looked at that impact in regards to additional housing down that way coming into Fairburn?
So part of our issue, if you look at the way the county was future mapped out, this corner was in fact anticipated to be higher development. It was painted red as a community village center. So it's been anticipated for higher density of either commercial or residential or a mix for many, many years. So that was anticipated. What wasn't anticipated was that the city would allow 1,400 or 1,500 apartments inside the city limits where we have no control, and that traffic is exiting on the outside edges of Riverside, up Thornton and up Fairburn. So I appreciate the traffic. I've been in that traffic myself. I know folks who live here have been in that traffic for, you're waiting for 5 or so minutes at a traffic light. It's a problem. But again, that's why we planned for the future. We knew that this was going to be a corner where things were going to happen. And we knew that the other side of Riverside was a corner where things were going to happen. And so we have a modern intersection now. They improved it. They put a traffic signal there a few years ago. So that's a brand new improvement. The right turn lane to facilitate this. The project you're looking at this evening has right in, right out on northbound Fairburn. So it has 2 exits for its traffic. So theoretically, people who live there would be able to come in on Fairburn and come in on Riverside and exit on Fairburn. It might not add so much to that intersection's traffic as you enter and exit the actual facility. So at the corner, it wouldn't necessarily add as much as you might think, where you look at the study and it says it goes from a level service B and B on one direction to E and E on the westbound direction. Again, it's a trade-off, as Commissioner Robinson has said. We're trying to think ahead, but that's how it would work, yes, for this particular project.
All right. That's all I had, Madam Vice Chair. I yield.
Thank you. If the applicant or Mr. Fowler, if you would come forward for me. So Attorney Fowler, I heard you say that this has been in your office for at least 6 months.
Yes, ma'am. We started working late October, early November, formulating the plans for all of this. When you do a PUD, of course, you begin from scratch and you essentially recreate an ordinance, and where it's not changed from the UDO, then the UDO applies. This was a long working process, several iterations of the plan, incorporating that with the traffic improvements that were understudied.
So we are all very aware of the many iterations Riverside has taken on, right? And we are sensitive, at least I am, to the type of business that you want to bring there. And Douglas County is open for business. And so we do applaud you for looking at us and for actually going through the 6-month period and working with our staff. So we are excited about that. However, after hearing your neighbors, which if this is approved, they will be your neighbors, how will you ensure that your neighbors understand that you are being a good steward of what's there?
Excuse me. I mean, I can tell you that we've developed similar projects from downtown Alpharetta to Kennesaw to Fairburn, and I think I can 100% safely say that we've been a phenomenal neighbor in every community we've been in. I'm very sensitive to the concerns and respect the concerns of the neighborhood. And we went to pretty significant lengths, I think, to address a lot of those concerns of the immediate neighbors. You know, as far as so we're very mindful of that, which is why we pushed the buildings back 350 feet and left most all the woods, hundreds of feet of woods intact, of the natural woods, and plus the barriers we're building. But but we're also trying to provide, I think, a real neighborhood retail center where people who live on that street precisely can go get convenience items or can go get a fun restaurant visit in that area. So I think we're very mindful and want to be great sort of neighbors for that area. And one clarification on the only E that I believe was on this traffic study, the traffic study is worded, if it's A through D, it's I think that's generally perceived to be acceptable. The E, we're not going from something else to an E. It's already an E, and it actually improves, which didn't make sense to me, except that I was told by the traffic engineers that DOT will change the light to accommodate a shorter wait. What this traffic study says is the wait would actually get shorter by 3 seconds on that intersection going from Riverside to 92 because of that. But I'm not a traffic engineer, I was just reading the report.
Got you. So one of the neighbors who live in the subdivision that is pretty close to there talked about home values and talked about, ensuring that if you could not fill those units, that they would not become subsidized housing. Do you have any comments regarding that? Do you use a management company? Is this something that I know you said you talked about projects in Alpharetta, but Alpharetta and Douglas are two different markets, and so
every market's different.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Fairburn's very different from this area also. So it's tough to make generalizations. I can tell you that of all the projects we've built, I would argue that the area around us has improved dramatically from the quality development that we have put in place. I'm not aware of anything I've developed in 35 or 40 years where it's done anything other than get more and more valuable, and for the quality of the property to continue to improve. I mean, we're making a $75 million investment. I'm confident that it will be very well maintained, and this is a property that the general income and of those living in this apartment, frankly, other than maybe demographically skew younger, is going to be a pretty similar to what lives in this area already. I mean, it's 50,000 to 250,000 and up. I mean, that will be the range. I would tell you typically the mean, so the middle person in a project that we develop is probably making $80,000 a year. And that's consistent in Fairburn, Georgia, and Alpharetta, it's probably a lot higher, but that's Kennesaw. And I'm just trying to think of the communities where we've done stuff. We've also done more suburban stuff, and Grayson would be similar to this, absolutely a similar makeup there.
Okay.
And we do, all of them are very professionally managed. It's the investment that we make in these is such that there's nothing more important to us than having a great management company, and we think we use the best management company in the country.
And in regards to the retail space that you are looking to put down there, what are some of those entities like for retail that you said the public would be able to access?
Yes, ma'am. I can lean on what we've done and the kind of tenants that we get in properties like this. I mean, everything from a pizza restaurant to a small Italian restaurant, but I think it's likely that of the 8,000 feet, probably half would be three-ish plus or minus. It could be 2, could be 4 restaurants of some nature. Maybe a breakfast place or coffee place. I don't know because we haven't got approval, so I can't go do it. I can tell you.
I would hope that you already had a little market research so you know
we have
what's
market
needed.
research, and that market research is what the projects we build is probably our best market research. And the most recent one's got a dentist office and a pizza place and a dessert place. And then I think a lot of the types of tenants we'd expect, it would not be unusual to have a salon or some kind of something like some service retail like that.
Okay. Thank you. Any further discussion regarding this item, Board of Commissioners? If not, I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do I have a motion on Z 2023-18, please?
This is Frank Payne. I recommend approval for Z 2023-18, a request for a rezoning for general commercial with conditions to a PUD planned unit development for a residential commercial development located at 3538 Highway 92 with the conditions as outlined by staff, conditions 1 through 4.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Chairman, it's Rob Thomas. I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, it's Kurt Nicholson with Douglas County Schools. As I see this development could add approximately 410 students to the school system. The closest elementary school already has 4 classrooms and trailers, and it's going to add at least 205 kids to that school. So I'm just throwing that out for the record. So.
Hey, thank you very much. Any other discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor of approving Z 2023-18 as read in with the conditions, please raise your hand. All opposed? Thank you very much. The motion carries, Madam Chair. Vice Chair, it'll come over to the Board of Commissioners with an approval for Z 2023-18.
Board of Commissioners, we have an approval for Z 2023-18 from the Planning and Zoning Board. I will accept a motion now.
Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you. Motion to approve and accept the recommendation of the Planning and Zoning Board for Z 2023-18 with the conditions as stated and by the conditions as accepted by the applicant.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? I'll second it. I have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise your right hand. All of those who oppose, same. It's 2-1, and the motion carries to approve Z 2023-18 with the conditions as read into the record.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duncan, I believe you have the next agenda item, please.
I do. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Z 2023-25. This is a request for a special use permit to change the exterior color of a building to adhere to the overlay requirements. This building is located at 2562 Fairburn Road, Douglasville, 30135. This is in Commission District Number 2. All right, in regard to the existing conditions, the property is located along the east side of Highway 92 and Fairburn Road. It is the multi-tenant shopping center. It was constructed around 2010. In regard to the applicant's proposal, they have painted the facade of the building without special use permit approval to alter the facade. The applicants are requesting permission to allow for the painted facade to remain. So this property is located in the highway corridor overlay. The intent of the overlay is to achieve a unified architectural aesthetic along the corridor. This is done through a combination of architectural design controls as well as landscape standards. The code was modified in 2020 to allow traditional masonry materials, including brick or stone, but it also does contemplate approval of additional materials. These could be things like, wood, stucco, architectural concrete, fiber cement siding. Staff does have the ability to approve that administratively to the extent that it is complementary to the overall design intent of the corridor. In terms of what is allowed by right or through administrative approval, it does not contemplate a painted brick surface, so any other material must be approved by the Board of Commissioners through a special use permit approval. And so that's why we have brought this to you today for your feedback. The base zoning is commercial. It has been commercial since the late 1990s. Here's an aerial view of the property. Here's a view of the property prior to the building being painted, when it did comply with the red brick facade that is required under the overlay. Here is a photograph of the building today. They have painted the exterior with a combination of white and gray paint with a little bit of masonry material on the portion of the middle section of the base. The applicant has also proposed a potential compromise to include a bit of the stone facade. You can see there at the bottom of the building. They have suggested that as a proposed compromise if that is something that the board is inclined to entertain. These are some additional images of what that could potentially look like and an artist rendering of what that could look like. The planning and zoning staff did provide feedback that we did not think that that was sufficient to demonstrate compliance with the overlay. We have included here examples of other buildings that have been permitted in the immediate vicinity to express why we don't believe that the current paint nor the compromise proposed by the applicant is suitable. The applicants have indicated that there is a palette of earth tones that they would potentially reconsider painting the outside of the building if this would be a suitable compromise to the Board of Commissioners. When staff did analyze the criteria against the code, we did find that it generally did not support the applicant's request for a painted building. So the planning department is recommending denial of the special use permit. However, if the board is inclined to allow the building to remain painted, staff would recommend the color palette that keeps with the precedent on the corridor. And that concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much. Ms. Duncan, at this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes to speak in a.
Thank you. Allow me to, Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49, Douglasville, and allow me to introduce the property owner, Ms. Patel. She is the owner of this property and has owned it for almost 2 years. When she acquired it, she learned that there had basically been a problem leasing this facility, getting leases, solid leases on the units. Some of you would be aware of that. She did marketing, she did advertising, she tried to get tenants, but it just was not going well. So she decided to give it a facelift, not knowing that it was inconsistent with the overlay district. So to that extent, she and I have been talking for a bit over a month about this, certainly talked with staff a number of times. And she apologizes, did not realize what she was doing. I will say this, the painting did help, and she's had increased traffic, increased interest, and obtained leases. She would like to leave it as it is, but you've got an ordinance that suggests otherwise. She doesn't have the vein sticking out in her neck about it, but what she would like to do, if you don't see fit to allow her to leave it as it is, or to put the brick that you saw pictured a moment ago, then if you would like to table it, should be glad to get back with the staff and look at some of these earth tones. I will say this, the ordinance, I believe, covers painting in earth tones, and some of the earth tones resemble what she's got there now. And in fact, if you look down the street at the new Wendy's, there's a portion of that that's brown and gray, like one of her buildings. It's just a problem when something that looked to be reasonable in an effort to do something good in the market runs against an ordinance. It was designed a long time ago. It's been consistently upheld by the staff for years. When she painted it, she was told that she needed to try to pressure wash it off, but that's not a good solution. I saw the picture of what happened when she pressure washed it. That's not an acceptable alternative. So it's going to have to be something involving painting. If you will allow her to continue, she would appreciate that. If not, she certainly understands. Maybe a remedy would be to send it back so we could work with the staff on a suitable alternative. She would like to speak if she may as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. If you would state your name and address for the record, and you would have 2 minutes.
Good evening, Rinku Patel, and my address, property address is 2562 Fairburn Road. I acquired this property about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. When I did acquire, there were only 3 tenants in there. And we started leasing it up, but the issue happened is that the visibility is so low because the building sits lower, so it's hard for anybody to see them. So the 3 tenants that were there when we acquired, they ended up leaving. 2 of them actually filed bankruptcy because they lost everything in there. So the next thing was, anybody that wanted that space, they wanted to make sure if we can help them bring more traffic, more business to their storefronts. So, we kind of had a buy-in from all the tenants to paint it. And once we started painting it in January this year, we actually got 2 new tenants signed and leased in place, as well as we have 2 LOIs that are signed. And then we're talking to 1 restaurant that can occupy 6,000 square feet of that end space to be occupancy at 100% on the shopping center. So it has definitely helped the local businesses. And I would encourage, and again, I apologize for making that mistake, but I would love for you guys to approve it to keep it to the colors that they are at. And I also kind of want to just add that that's not the only property I have. I do have several other properties in this city here. And I've changed the colors to similar facade to bring in more traffic to those same businesses, and they all have thrived. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? If you would, you'll have 2 minutes. Please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, my name is Tino Hernandez, 6374 Hillview Lane, Douglasville, 30134. I am a tenant at the building. I just leased it signed the lease around 3 months ago. The painting was one of the things that sealed the deal because it just looked more modern now with the gray. Not that there was something wrong with the old brick, but it just looks way modern now. And I have noticed more traffic too. I just wanted to share my point of view since I am in there, and I have noticed I have benefited from the paint job too. I believe that's all I got to say.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. If you would, state your name and address for the record, and then you would have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Richard Siegel. I live at 9905 Ashford Greenway, which is right off Riverside Parkway. I know Mr. Fowler is shocked. Usually when I get up to speak, it's against one of the properties he's representing. But being that I live off Riverside Parkway, and I'm frequently driving up to this area and to downtown Douglasville for various events that go on, I drove past this building many, many times, and I was always thinking it's a shame that it's sitting down in a hole. It doesn't look like it's occupied, but once it got painted, I was amazed. I saw the day they were painting it, I was driving by and I said, this looks incredible. I know what it says in your UDC, but sometimes you get tired of just seeing brick all the time, and this really looks beautiful, and it pops and it stands out, and it gets your attention. And now that the signage on the buildings has a different color behind it, it's so much easier to see. And I think this is wonderful, and it really deserves a special use permit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. Any other, anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? If you would, state your name and address for the record, and then you would have 2 minutes.
Rosalind McDonald, 2031 Sweet Bay Drive. As a realtor, I have passed all of these areas that everybody's up for. But especially this particular building, since I've been around, you honestly don't even notice it until now. There is one particular business, April's, that is there. It used to be somewhere else, but you couldn't notice it. It's just, honestly, it just was not visible. I'm thinking, okay, this is a storage shed. It's just one of those buildings, but now that it's painted, it actually looks like someplace I want to frequent, and I actually bring my clients there because you want to show them the area. You want to show them there's life here, and the building has life now. It didn't have life before, so I just ask that you approve their permit.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor? Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing in opposition, close the public hearing totally. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion, you've heard the comments. Do you have any questions of staff or of the applicant?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask Ms. Duncan.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Fowler referred to the Wendy's, the color of the Wendy's, and I can't recall it. So is it truly a similar color plus brown?
The Wendy's does comply with the corridor overlay. They do have their signature color, right, as a part of their sign structure, or as a part of the bay that is a part of their sign structure. But it is in compliance with the materials of the corridor. It is not painted white and gray, if that's what you're asking.
So if the applicant added another brown to her color palette, would it fit into the corridor better than the gray and white? Would it be a better fit in the corridor?
So again, I will bring up our slides to share with you. These are the existing examples from the corridor. We could certainly go out and provide more examples of the color palette. Again, if it is the inclination of the board to have the building repainted, Mr. Fowler had suggested it as perhaps appropriate to table this and let us work with the applicant to see if we could return something back to you that is suitable.
Any other questions or comments for the staff or the applicant?
Yes, Ms. Duncan, while you're there, I think there was a concern regarding the type of paint, whether or not it could destroy the brick or the surface. Has there been any research or anything done in order to see if that's the proper paint that should be used for that facility?
We have not asked the applicant expressly what type of paint they used. We did reflect the concern in our staff report that brick is a porous material. It will trap moisture and therefore needs to breathe. And depending on what type of paint is used on a building, it can cause irrevocable harm over time to the surface of the building. If you would like to ask the applicant or the representative if they, are more familiar with the type of paint that was used, that would certainly be a question more appropriately directed to them. But we just raise that as a concern that over time, any painting of the building potentially does irrevocable damage because of the nature of brick materials.
Okay. Could the applicant come back up, please?
We did paint with an exterior brick paint that is made for brick. The total cost for painting that building was $40,000.
Does it have any type of lifetime guarantee or anything?
I don't know about the exact number of how many years is guaranteed for, but this paint is made for exterior brick color.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I still have a question for the applicant. You can stay right there. Yes. I know you made the decision to paint this, and I ride through that area, and I just noticed it when I came back, that it's a different color than I've normally seen, because I have friends that had businesses there, and like you said, it wasn't able to pull the people that are coming in. And I know that we as the county are going to be looking at this, not only with you, but with others who are looking at, might make the same decision to make that. And I know your intents were good, so we just definitely want to make sure that we look at this and see what we can do to make it feasible for everybody and your clients that are living there in that location.
I appreciate that. And just a little background, years ago, I used to be a small business owner, and because of similar reasons, I did lose my business. I ended up filing for bankruptcy. So when those tenants did file for bankruptcy, that kind of hits home. So that's something I do not want the rest of my tenants to go through.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Chairman Rob Thomas, I have a question of staff. So this would be a variation, a deviation from the norm, based on that whole corridor.
Yes, sir.
So this is all 92 Fairburn that you got here, or?
Correct, the highway corridor overlay.
That's just 92 right here.
Well, we have expanded the highway corridor overlay to encompass 4 overlay areas in the county, all with similar standards.
Okay, so these are various from different roads, not necessarily 92 only.
Nope, these are all 92.
These
These
are
are all
92.
in the vicinity of the project.
Okay, all right. So has there, as a whole, has there been any approvals in the past for similar scenarios like this that you can recall?
In terms of variances to the corridor overlay, most of those in nature tend to be to the landscaping requirements, right? So making the buffer a little bit more narrow or kind of giving a bit on the trees. There was, and Mr. Schaefer will have to help me remember, when the movie studio project came in, the building, the 3-story building on the front will be red brick, 4 sides of the building. Behind it, there was a materials consideration for the metal, the studio portion of it, and that did have to go through the Board of Commissioners for approval.
Okay. So approval can happen, I mean, it has happened for scenarios like that, not necessarily in this scenario, because this is something they're asking for forgiveness, not for approval up front, so.
Correct. So again, to clarify staff's perspective, we did not feel that we could administratively approve this, right? And the code is clear that anything that is not either allowed by right or something that we can administratively approve comes to y'all for consideration. So again, we just bring this to you because we believe it exceeds our authority to approve it, and it most correctly needs to be approved by the Planning and Zoning Board and Board of Commissioners if it is allowed to remain. As we always do, we pay very close attention to your decisions, and we take that as direction for what may come in the future, to the point that this will be somewhat of a precedent, for what's allowed in the corridor. So if we move in this direction, we just need to be prepared for similar, requests to be made, and to make sure that we can identify if this would be sort of something that would be suitable for all buildings, or if there is something that is unique to this building that makes it such that it would not be opening it up for precedent for all buildings. Would be just, again, a suggestion from the staff's perspective. But again, it's here before you because we don't have the authority under the code to approve it. It has to be approved by y'all.
You understand? So I was just making sure that, so it's never, as far as you've never approved anything like this before, other than, like you said, about the buildings behind the structure across the street, basically, from this.
Right. In this area, that's the only one that I can think of, off the top of my head, that has come and asked for variances for the architectural finish. We have granted variances for the landscape standards along the corridor in the past. This building actually did get a variance, for the landscape standards. Their tree buffer in front is a little bit more narrow than what you see on the corridor because they came and asked for a reduction in that to be able to put in more parking along the front.
Can you speak to the back of it? Like, there's something going on in the back as far as the where the clock tower, I guess, what area it is? Wrong
way. Nope. There was the right way. Hang on. Sorry.
Because I'm trying to find out what's going to be back there. I know we approved some other developments back there.
Right, so there was
car
a
wash on the
approval
right.
to rezone it to residential high-density zoning district, and that was for a townhome project, about 60 townhomes behind there, in that area that you see behind the building.
Those colors,
That project is going through DRC, and so I don't know that we've seen elevations on that project yet, but it is in the corridor, and so it will have to comply with the corridor standards in regard to overall design. As we said, the movie studio building also has to, has come in and agreed to, for the front building that y'all see under construction now, that is compliant with the corridor design. And as we work through the trails, the mixed-use project right there at the intersection of Lee and 92, they are aware of the standards, and they have, submitted kind of just preliminary work that does indicate compliance with the overall corridor
so
design.
behind this shopping center is going to be apartments, brown, or at least
Townhomes.
townhomes, but the coloring is going to be earth tone type colors, correct?
So again, I don't think that we've seen the architecture yet, but
that's what the requirements are. I'm saying.
Right, at whatever time it comes for approval, we would look to the precedent, on the corridor, and we would make that determination at the time. The car wash is another building that's currently constructed, it's currently under construction out there, and they are complying with the requirement for the brick facade on the building right now.
So if this was still brown or earth tone the way it was, and then now you have the apartments in the back will also be the same, I can see this, in this particular case, I can see it being advantageous to the shopping center to kind of not blend in so much with the background. So, because they said the apartment is going to be earth tone type material as well.
Right. So again, the purpose of the overlay is to ensure a cohesive aesthetic. Absolutely understand that people are going to have, different opinions of what looks great. We also understand that what is popular now may not be popular in the future. So we certainly want to make sure that we're keeping, the corridor viable. That is why we changed some of the recommendations in 2020. We would suggest keeping with a palette of what is already approved. That's staff recommendation. Again, it will be up to this board if they choose to move in a different direction. We will take that, we will take that back, and we will look at that, in terms of precedent setting, for future approvals to see if this is a direction that we want to move in this area. But again, showing you the images of what are already out there, it's our recommendation that we need to work to keep it more within the palette of what is already existing out there. So again, if it's your inclination to approve it, that is certainly within your right to do. If you would like us to continue to work with the applicant on a solution, per Mr. Fowler's recommendation, we can table this and we can continue to work with them if you don't feel that any of the solutions presented here this evening are satisfactory.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Final question for you, Allison. Well, I don't know if it's a final question, but hopefully one of the final questions for you. In regards to precedents, right? Because we understand the slippery slope concept, right? If there was anybody else that came forth that would want something similar to this, it would still be a matter of a special use permit. Allowing this today wouldn't set a precedent for people to just begin to change the color of their
Well, so again, allowing this today, I would say make sure that you feel that you can articulate what is so unique about this building that you want to move in this direction if you don't want to set a precedent, right? What is the consideration that is unique, that would not be precedent setting? Otherwise, if somebody goes and paints a building and then comes to you and said, well, I painted the building because I saw this building painted, and they didn't file for special use permit as would be appropriate for the process, how would we handle that situation? Would be kind of the feedback that I would, give in regard to that.
Duly noted. Thank you. That's all my questions.
How long ago was this overlay applied to the corridor? How long has it been in place?
2007 is the date that we sort of approximately use. It has changed over time. The initial iteration of the corridor overlay required architectural precedent reminiscent of Italianate and classical revival architectural styles, right? So we've modified that. We have made changes over time to try to keep it contemporary with current standards. So again, the most recent iteration was in 2020. We changed it to be from just brick to brick and stone. And then, we allowed half a dozen other materials that staff could approve administratively if it seemed like it fit within the context. So we do update it.
And the last update, you said was
2020. Mm-hmm.
So from 2007, there was very little development along that corridor. 2007, when it first became the overlay. And now we're beginning to see more activity along that corridor. So it may need to be updated yet again.
I mean, we updated it in 2020, and the significant projects that we've had come into the corridor have not, to my knowledge, given us any pushback on complying with the corridor design overlay.
Real quick, can you put the picture back up again of her shopping center?
Sorry, I think I'm going in the wrong. Yeah, so this is their rendering showing what they had proposed, that little masonry detailing on the bottom, and then this is the photo of the painting.
Do you have one like from the street perspective?
Like a straight on?
Yeah,
I do not.
you don't.
No, I do not. I mean, we have the,
Okay.
we have the.
Right there. Is that the render? That's actual.
It's an artist's rendering.
That's a rendering?
It's computer generated.
Okay. That's good, rendering. Yeah, that's a picture, right? Yeah, I see car. That looks.
Right.
That's a rendering?
So again, do you see what they're showing on the bottom is the stone, the masonry detail, right? So again, it is it's been retouched is probably the better way of describing it. But yeah, my guess is it was taken from a photograph, and then it was digitally altered to show the masonry that they propose along the bottom as a compromise, if you are inclined to approve that.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying.
Okay. Any other questions? I have one of Mr. Fowler. Mr. Fowler, would you approach? Did I understand you earlier say that as opposed to a denial coming from Planning and Zoning Board, you would rather request this be tabled so your client can work with staff to perhaps come up with a different outcome?
Yes, sir. We'd rather you approve it, but if you're not going to approve it, we'd like to table it so we can go back to the drawing board.
Okay, thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion, the comments. Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. Let me throw it over to Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you've heard from the staff. Is there any questions to the staff or the applicant? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
Absolutely. No, I'll be quick on this. This shouldn't take that long for this one. I'm very familiar with the clock project. Everything that's gone into that for all these years. One of the things I want to make everybody aware of is that there's a reason why you do an overlay. There's a reason why this corridor had an LCI associated with it. It was a certain look and feel. Is how that area wanted itself to be developed. This is important. I just came back from Savannah, and as a matter of fact, I saw the hanging moss, which the LCI is based on. Right? How do we blend? How do we develop ourselves? That overlay was important in 2020. We made it consistent across the whole county. Like, okay, guys, you got this hodgepodge. So I mean, it's interesting how we do code and then we don't apply it. We get convenient. I like consistency. Now we do give exceptions. We'll get 30-year when we want to. The board can. In this case, I think, and honestly, out of all developments for that building to be there, it's like, wow, who approved that? Who built that? I get it. Let's be honest. That's how we do it in our district. Like, okay, really? If that's the area that needed some help, a consideration, you built it underground like New Orleans is. It's in a hole, guys. Now, what does the board do? Do we extend help? Do we give consideration? I appreciate. I would love to hear more about local neighbors who have thoughts about this to that immediate area. But I mean, I get it. This really comes down to choice. But what I'd like to do is see a little bit more of a blend. If we're going to hold this standard to everybody else around you, there needs to be some type of, okay, measurable, equitable, like a blend. So I'm hopeful that, I mean, I get it. I just need to be consistent here. I'm going somewhere just long term, like I need everybody to hear it. Be consistent. But if there's a compromise, I'm open to them. I'm okay approving this. I'm okay with the agreement that the applicant will agree to work out. I don't know, 50% of that is going to be brown. I'm not trying to design it for you. It's yours to solve and to agree with. I'm just saying, I get it. I guess sometimes our job is to create the atmosphere, to show that we're open for business, that we can create things, but I just want to walk it out. And if you've been a little bit, I think there's a willingness to. But I get the compromise, I get the handicap that building in. Let's keep that real. We know the flood that was behind that. Let's keep this real. We know how hard it took for us to really get this where it was. We get it. All right, but the question is just not could we do it, but should we do it? And I'll yield to my colleagues. So, Joe, can you answer the question? Are you willing to, if approved, are you willing to work this out? Now, do you need time? Yes or no? You need time to figure out, can you compromise and bring it in? You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I get the as is, like, bring a little bit in. Can you get us there? Or do you need time?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I think we can.
And what does that mean? Can you help us?
Well, that means it sounds like you're not going to vote for it, Mr. Commissioner. So it sounds like we need to table it and go back to meet with staff some more.
Okay.
I didn't fall off the turnip truck yesterday. It was the day before.
Yeah, but actually, I wasn't going to vote against it, but since you said the way you said it, I was just, okay, I'll table it then. All right, then, Madam Vice Chair, I yield.
Thank you. To the applicant, I want you to know we heard you, right? It absolutely looks great, so I applaud you for doing it. I just wish you would have came to us beforehand, because this is a hard lesson to learn. This is a costly $40,000. That's a lot of money, so I understand. I'm a small business owner as well, so I understand when we make investments. Oftentimes we want to see a return quickly, so I would concur, right? Just in order for us to keep everything equitable in that area. Plus, we do have a studio coming across the street, right, that you will be facing. And so we just want to make sure that everyone is in compliance. But I applaud you. It looks great. So are there any other questions regarding this? Chairman Simmons, I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussion. Do I have a motion, please?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to table application S 2023-25 until the June 6, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting to give the applicant time to comply with the corridor of the lane.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Ori Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of tabling application S 2023-25 until the June 6, 2023 meeting, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Chairman, Vice Chair, it comes to the board with a recommendation to table S 2023-25 until June the 6th, 2023.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board to table S 2023-25 until the June 6, 2023 meeting. Is there a motion to accept the approval?
Motion, second approval to table.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Have a motion and a second. All in favor, state by raising your right hand. And the motion is unanimous to approve the tabling. Thank you. Chairman Simmons, I return it back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fowler, and we wish you best with the staff between now and next month. Mr. Johnson, I believe you have the next item, please.
Yes, sir. The next item is S 2023-27, a special use permit for applicant Jean Facilion. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow short-term rental located at 3066 Newberry Lane, Newberry Walk Subdivision, Douglasville 30135. Before you have the zoning map The parcel is currently zone RLD. This is an aerial image of the property. This is a site plan / survey of the property. This is the street view of the house. And this is the analysis. Based on the special use permit criteria, the applicant does meet the criteria. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the requested special use permit S2023-27 with the following findings and directive of staff findings. The use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare.
Is that concluded?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point in time, I will open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. That would be the applicant or the applicant's representative included. You would have 15 minutes allocated time, 2 minutes per person to speak in favor of this application. If you would state your name and address for the record, and then we'll start the 2 minutes.
So my name is Jean Francilion, and I live in the property. So again, my name is Jean Francilion. I'm a business owner. I'm a father, a husband, and a business owner as well. So I'm here trying to get the special permit to run an Airbnb in my house. I know last meeting we had, there was a lot of unanswered questions because there was a lot of people talking. So a lot of concern was about safety, property values, and around the community. So one thing I am going to say is for the safety is I live in the property with 2 young kids that's under 5 years old. I live with my wife and my mother-in-law. So when it comes to safety, that's my #1 priority to run that business. So we put a lot of things in place. We have cameras in place. We have floodlights in our property, and also we vent all our guests to when they come to the Airbnb. Also, Airbnb also vent the guests and do a background check on them as well too. We don't allow anyone under the age of 21 to stay in our property. If you are under 21, you have to have somebody 21 or older to stay there with you. We do not allow one night stays because a lot of time when they do one night stays, that's when they want to have parties and things like that. We do not allow any parties in our Airbnb, again, because we live upstairs, we have 2 young kids, and we have quiet hours from 8 p.m. to 9 a.m. And again, when it comes to property value of the community, I have asked friends, real estate agent, there's really not a censor or things in place that says like having an Airbnb in a community brings down the property value. But one thing they said is if that Airbnb is known as a party house, it might affect the property value a little bit. So, what is that in my notes? And also we had a lot of misunderstanding about the zoning that's gonna be around my neighborhood. Is a lot of people think I'm gonna come and build or take away or destroy the neighborhood. I'm not here to build nothing in the neighborhood. I'm not here to destroy nothing. I love my community. I love my neighborhood. I'm raising 2 boys in that neighborhood. I love my neighbors. So I just want to make sure they understand that I'm not here to add or take away nothing or change any zoning around the neighborhood. And I think that's
your
it.
2 minutes.
That's it.
Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Avina Burt. I live at 3595 Newberry Lane. I live across the street from my neighbor here. I work from home. I telework. I work for the federal government remotely from Redstone Arsenal. I am home every day. I also am a dialysis patient. I am constantly doing dialysis, and sometimes at night I find myself not being able to sleep. So therefore, I go out and sit on my front porch. At 2 o'clock in the morning, you can basically tell what your neighborhood is like. So when I'm sitting out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, it is peaceful, it is quiet. He has security lights on his building to the point that if I'm sitting on my porch in the morning, if somebody drives by his house, his light will come on on his garage and illuminate the street. At 2 o'clock in the morning, there are cars that is coming out of the cul-de-sac in the back that is playing loud music. When they come out of that cul-de-sac, they go and park on the side by his parking lot, and they play loud music, and they get out of that car, and they will have conversations on the street. They do not know I'm sitting on that porch at 2 a.m. in the morning. I am what we call Newberry Walk's, what'd you call it? The security system, because I can tell what that neighborhood is all about. So far, so good. It has been a good neighborhood. I moved to Newberry Walk because of the fact that when I moved here, I chose to move in that area because there was no HOAs. And as we know, most HOAs are not governed by any kind of laws. I also know about, I will finish my conversation by saying I also know about Airbnb because I tried to register with the Airbnb and know their rules and regulation when it comes to rentals.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hello, my name is Island. I live at 3600 Newberry, that's my husband. I'm in favor of this. I'm a very shy and cautious person, so when my husband suggested that we did this, I was not so keen to doing this, but because my eldest son, he has a medical problem, and my mother-in-law, she's disabled, so for me to find a full-time job, it's very hard. I had to leave 3 jobs last year because of that. And any moment I could get a call from his school to pick him up to bring him to a doctor or the hospital or emergency room or whatever. And we have security. Again, no one could book the Airbnb if they're under 21. And Airbnb has vent everybody that comes, everybody that wants to book. And we have security alarm if anything should happen. So far, nothing has happened. Most of our guests are coming here to Douglas for teachers conference, missionary conference, and I know a lot of people are not happy with that. But again, for me, as a stay-at-home mom trying to, bring income so I don't have to work, that's something that's helping us financially to pay our mortgage and everything. Because I know times are hard. And my husband is carrying all of us on his back, and he needs relief, and that's the best way for us to do this right now. I'm nervous, sorry. And that's it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, you would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. I see a number of people, so people in the front, in order to give time for the people in the back, please make your comments short and sweet. Thank you very much. If you'd state your name and address.
This afternoon, my name is Michelle Williams. I live at 3540 Newberry Lane. Let me just start by saying the reason some people said they moved here was because it's a quiet community, and they're absolutely right. We have a 21 unit cul-de-sac community. There's one way in, one way out. It's a sidewalk community. My husband and I bought our house in 1997. Several properties have changed hands since then, and we have never, ever in all that time had an issue with any of our neighbors. That is a rarity. And we don't have anything, I don't have anything against Mr. Francilion. What I am opposed to is him wanting to have an Airbnb and change the feel and the continuity of our neighborhood. We have been property taxpayers and taxpayers for 40, some of us, 40, 30, 20 years. When we signed the deed to buy our home, we did so because it was a single family dwelling. period. And now he wants to change that. And he, I think I heard, if I'm not mistaken, that they have already had guests. I thought this was a hearing to approve the application. So that's a question for me already. How are you doing that? And you don't even have approval. So that, to me, speaks to integrity. Just stand, we want you to protect us. Who is protecting us? We've been there, like I said, for over, some of us, over 40 years, the neighbors across the street, over 40 years, paid our property taxes, paid our mortgages, did our due diligence. And then one person wants to come in and change all that. It should not be so. It just should not be so. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. If you would state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes.
Deborah Caprians, 3460 Newberry Lane. I've been in my residence for 21 years. We are a quiet community, never no issues. Like Ms. Michelle said, most of us have been in that community 20 plus years. The fact that an Airbnb, I see no good in it. As you can see in the news lately, here in Douglas County alone, there's been tragedies with Airbnb. There's been, teenagers dying. Not saying that this is, but it's opening our community for this. If this is approved, then, who else is to come in and do an Airbnb and just bring our community down? So, and if you look on the internet, it does decrease the value of your property with Airbnb. It is on the internet. So I just hope, just protect us. We don't want it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Next person, please state your name and address, and then you would have 2 minutes.
Good afternoon. Randy Locke, 3585 Newberry Lane. I've been there for over 25 years. My concern is if this one is passed, then where does the next one go? With one street in and one street out. As a pastor here in Douglas County for over 20 years, I understand. I get it. I'm compassionate. I get it about the income and all. I completely understand that. But for a one way in, one way out, and for the community where we're at, we're asking for you guys to see it from our point of view, that we've come together and looked at this thing from a multiple standpoint. So we're just asking that we not have that in there in our community, in that place where we're at there. So thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments. State your name and address for the record, sir, and you have 2 minutes.
How you doing? My name is Lloyd Ward. I live at 3500 Newberry Lane. I'm one of the freshmen in the neighborhood, if you will. My neighbors to my right have been there 25 plus years, I believe, around 25 years. They're empty nesters doing their thing. My neighbor to the left, I think 18 years. My neighbor here, I think she moved in after I did 4 years ago. So in the last 30 years, I've been in executive protection. I'm a private security contractor now. Oftentimes I have to leave my home and go places that are very unsavory and protect other people. I like to protect my own family. This brings in something to our neighborhood that we do not need. There is a direct correlation between crime spikes and statistics and Airbnbs. We're all aware of it. Once this starts, it will snowball from there. An ounce of prevention can help and save our neighborhood. That is my home. It's not my hustle. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. If you'd state your name and address for the record, and then you have 2 minutes, sir.
All right, Doug Braun, 2931 Beaumar Road. I live directly across the street from it. I've been living here in that house since 1987. I've seen a lot of this community change. That used to be woods there. Shoot, when I moved in here, Ingalls on Fairburn Road was nothing but woods. To bring the Airbnb into the community, I don't want that over there. It's a small, tight-knit community over there. Everybody gets along. If they want to do short-term rental, we've got hotels, motels, and everything else around here. We don't need that in this neighborhood. I'm asking that you reject this application.
Thank you, sir. If you'd state your name and address for the record, then we'll have 2 minutes.
My name is Tommy Braun. I live at 2931 Beaumar Road, directly across from him as well. We've been living there for 40 years. It was country. It's no longer country. It's growing. But we don't need an Airbnb. I got grandchildren that come over. I need protection for my family, for my grandchildren. I don't need an Airbnb across the street. We got hotels all over Fairburn Road. They can stay there. So I just ask that you reconsider this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. State your name and address for the record in 2 minutes.
Ahmed Diallo, my address is 3580 Newberry Land, Douglasville 30135. I've been living in my place for 10 years now, compared to him who just moved there maybe less than 15 months ago. So my concern is about our safety, and I don't want to live in a place where the house is transformed into a motel. He said that he's going to use a portion of his house as a Airbnb, but tomorrow he may use the whole house as a rental place, which may lead to all kinds of situations. So we are asking for our safety, or our security, or safety, and for your health. So so you don't allow him to transform his place until a place where we have to be dealing with drugs and everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? You would state your name and address for the record, and you'd have 2 minutes.
Michelle Williams, 3540 Newberry Lane. When I came up previously, I forgot to mention that we did create a petition, and I don't know if you want it presented to you or not, but there are over 30 names from our community, from our cul-de-sac community and the surrounding community of the residents who are not in favor of the Airbnb at this residence. So we do have that as well.
Thank you. If you give it to staff there, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition?
Afternoon, evening. My name is Otto Lewis. I'm at 3480 Newberry Lane. I've lived in that cul-de-sac for 18 years. Lost my wife in that cul-de-sac. I've never had a problem there. And one question I want to ask you guys, do you want something like this in your neighborhood? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one moving, at this point in time, I will close the public hearing in opposition. And Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the comments, you have heard the explanations. Do you have any questions of the applicant or of staff?
I have a question for staff. I heard the concerns of one resident saying that, that it was already being Airbnb in it. So could you kind of explain how did this come into the person coming in requesting a special use permit for the Airbnb or short-term rental?
Yes. So, as you may or may not know, we lease a third party, Granicus, and it tracks all short-term rentals in Douglas County. I personally oversee and send out letters to everyone who is not in compliance, and that is how it was brought before you today.
So how long has this been established so that the residents and also the people in here will understand that as well? When was it established? How long has it been in play that you've been tracking those short-term rentals or Airbnbs in the neighborhood, in the community?
So I believe Granicus was, so we just started our second year with Granicus. I think it was, March. It was initially brought on and began to track short-term rentals in Douglas County.
Okay, I just want to make that clear because I think that, they was talking about an integrity piece of that. And based on that, it's just based on right now, we have a system that are now tracking those Airbnbs that do not have those permits that are required now before that they weren't being tracked later. I just wanted that to be put on the record. That's all.
Any other questions?
Since you're up, quick question. How long has he been operating the Airbnb?
The applicant might be better
Okay.
to answer that. We
Right.
just tracked it. It doesn't state how long they've been up.
So since December,
Okay, so just a few months then?
yes.
Okay. And have you spoken to your neighbors prior? Did you let them know what you were doing, or how long you been there? Another question. How long you been there? First of all, I meant to.
So I've been in. I moved to Douglas County from South Florida about a year now.
Okay, so you've been in that house about a year.
A year, made.
Okay.
Yeah, made it a year. Yes.
Okay. So did you communicate with your neighbors what you want to do, what you plan to do?
So I tell you the truth, I talked to my neighbor across the street, and also I talked to my neighbor to my right of me, Stephanie. My other neighbor that's on to my left, I really didn't have a conversation with him, but we always talk. He see me doing work in my house. I'm doing the work in my basement. He's asked me what I'm doing, but we never had that conversation, you know? So again, I just moved into the neighborhood. I really didn't know nobody like that. So I just kept to myself, and then that's it. So, but soon after I came to that first meeting, I did go across the street and let them know again, there's only sign, this is what I'm gonna be doing, this is what I'm asking the board for a special permit to do.
Gotcha. So can you understand the concerns of your neighbors?
Of course.
You've been there a year, and then some have been
Of
there
course.
20, 30 years, and.
Listen, as a father, I got 2 kids, a wife, and a mother-in-law to protect. So I understand their concern. And that's why, again, before I started this Airbnb business, I went to try to find every precaution to make sure my family is safe and the neighborhood I live in is safe. And this is why we put stuff in place that we don't allow anyone that's under 21, we don't allow people that stay for one night, and we put other things in place so we don't have that, you know, a lot of crowds in the house, a lot of cars parked and things like that.
But you understand that if we approve this, what you're saying now doesn't matter, right? I mean, you could say that today, but we can't hold you to that. There's nothing that we can say you have to have a person over 21 or these other stipulations. It could be anybody, right? So that's when I said their concerns, I'm talking about those type of concerns. You could move out and just rent it as an Airbnb 100%. So
no, but with the special use permit, if I move out, I cannot use that special use permit.
Okay.
I have to.
Well, let me say it this way. The safeguards that you're putting in place, I agree. They sound reasonable.
Yes, sir.
However, we as in the body here, we can't enforce those safeguards. You say, oh well, you know, I need to pick up the business a little bit, and I need to let someone 18 or older to rent it. So I'm just saying you could change your criteria. That could be even more problematic to your neighbors, and there's nothing you don't come back to us and say, well, he changed the criteria, now we got to disapprove it. It doesn't work that way. Once you approve, you approve.
I understand. But one thing about Airbnbs now, they're very strict with things like that. If we get any noise complaint or police officer come to the house, complain, or the neighbors could reach out to Airbnb and say, hey, there's a house, they're having parties, there's always people, and Airbnb will ban you on their website. So they are very strict with that going forward, because there used to be a lot of parties. You know, there used to be people that rent their house, they don't even live in the community. So Airbnb is very strict with that.
Well, I'm very familiar. I've used them many times. So
yes.
I understand the value of them. But, you know, you have to understand your neighbor's perspective as well, is what I'm trying to get at. But
I understand. Yes.
That's only concern or question I had, a really comment that I had.
Yes.
You know, what else have anything else?
Yes. Why are you here? You mentioned that, do you live upstairs at the house? How many stories?
It's a split level, so I live upstairs with my family, and we have a downstairs basement.
You have so they rent the downstairs?
Yes, sir.
Airbnb?
Yes, so they have their own entrance downstairs.
Okay. Do you have utilities down there for the Airbnb?
So it's a 1-bedroom, so we don't have no kitchen, so it's a 1-bedroom, 1 bath. We have a microwave, we have a coffee maker, and that's about it.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Madam Vice
Last
Chair,
question,
I'll
real
throw it
quick.
to Commissioners.
Well, last question, just for staff. Hey, Jacool, this will be quick. Have you got, prior to you guys using Granicus to find have you gotten any reports or had anybody reported about this neighbor?
No, I have not received any.
So nothing
complaints
came to the
about this
county?
neighbor or Airbnbs at this location.
Beautiful. That's all I need to know. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, this time I'll throw it over to you, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions in regards to S 2023-27 to the staff or the applicant? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
All right, thank you. Madam Vice Chair, so let's get at this and keep this evening going. Again, we keep having this talk about Airbnbs. Airbnbs. Like everything in society, we evolve. Phones weren't around, websites weren't around, and change is always difficult. But there's two reasons people come out and complain. Not in my backyard, or if I'm ideologically opposed. So here I am. What position do I take? It's allowed. You know, it's allowed. It just requires the discretionary approval of the board. You try to be consistent. Now I hear it. I'm like, ooh. I hear the neighbors. I hear y'all. But also I believe that, but it's property rights. Like you can't, how do I dictate to my neighbor what they can do with their property, their house? I get it, but his rights are no less 1 year old or 40 years old. It's his house. Now, we have allowed as a county, we've embraced this concept, and we really didn't embrace it. It was already in play. How many Airbnbs we got? We just now trying to catch up. People are already doing what they had to do with their property. Now we're trying to make sure we tax them for it. Like, where are you going with that? No, you running a business out of a residential place? Like, so we had to make the law catch up. That's what Granicus is. Good job, staff. Now we can keep up with this. But the question is, do we allow it? This one right here is a tough one. I know a position I'm going to take, but I have no questions. I pretty much, sometimes you have to just hear. And every now and then, for every yes, somebody wants a no. And for every no, sometimes somebody wants a yes. So somebody's going to be disappointed in this moment, but Madam Vice Chair, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments regarding this? Commissioner Alcaraz, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Vice Chair. Tailgating off of what Commissioner Robinson just said, the only concern I would have is, and again, like you said, you do, regardless if you're there for 1 year or 6 months, you do have property rights. But I do understand, and I appreciate those who have lived, who's had that longevity in that neighborhood, and you have got to know your neighbors. You know, it becomes, quote unquote, a neighborhood family. See each other as you drive in, and you wave to each other as you drive out. That, would be, we have a home rule, which we, sometimes follow the lead of our commissioner of that district. But that would just be the only thing I would say to consider is just, as these come and spoke tonight, it's a long-standing neighborhood of a lot of families who's lived there for a lot of years. And they feel very strongly about this, but that's all I want to say. I yield back, Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcaraz. This one right here is hard, right? Because Mr. Francione, to you and your wife, we understand what you are requesting, and staff has done a good job. I will tell you that I asked the staff to help us to institute and bring some type of order to the Airbnb business, because in my own district, we did have houses that were being rented out, and I was getting emails left and right regarding Airbnbs. And so the staff and I took a look at how could we make this better, right? Not only for those who are trying to incorporate a business, but for those neighbors who actually live there, because they do too want some type of semblance of, structure and safety. And so, we wanted to have the best of both worlds. So we get it, we understand, and to the neighbors, we totally understand where you are coming from. I do have Airbnbs in my neighborhood, right off Chapel Hill. They have gotten special permits. So, this is not new, but for the staff and for those who are listening, we try to ensure that we hear all of the neighbors and all of the concerns of the small business owners and the communities that we serve. So we hope that either way, you don't take this personal, but just know that over time, things do evolve. We do our best as a Board of Commissioners to ensure that we are trying to address everyone's concerns. It does bring joy to my heart to know that there is nothing that has happened, that you do actually live in that home, that you will continue to live there, and that you have put things in place if this is approved. But if not, we hope that don't take it personal. You can't say anything now because it is closed, but we hear you and we do understand. Thank you. And with that, we turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the comments. Do I have a motion on S 2023-27? Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion?
Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. I'd make a motion to approve S 2023-27, request for special use permit to allow for short-term rental from home location at 3600 Newberry Lane.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
This is Brandon Penniman. I second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion, Planning and Zoning Board?
The one discussion I will say is that I think property rights do trump neighbors in the sense of they have the right to do with their property as they see fit. So that's my comment.
Any other discussion, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor of approving S 2023-27, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? Thank you very much. Madam Chairman, we had a motion to approve S 2023-27 and it failed. So it comes to you with a failed approval.
Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board to deny application S 2023-27. I will now ask the board for a motion.
Okay, point of order. Did it fail or did it pass?
It failed. The recommendation was to deny, so it failed.
Was it to approve it and they declined it?
No, they actually denied the application to.
I just want to know for the record.
Yes.
All right, Madam Vice Chair, may I?
You do. You have the floor.
Madam Vice Chair, I make a motion to deny the application of S 2023-27 as is.
I have a motion to deny. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion to deny, and I have a second. Any other discussion regarding this agenda item? Being none, all in favor to deny S 2023-27, raise your hand. And the motion to deny is unanimous, and we turn it back over to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much. Mr. Johnson, I believe you have our next item also.
Yes. The next case is S 2023-28, a special use permit by the applicant Confidence Pia. I believe I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. A request for a special use permit to allow short-term rental located at 3202 Beaver Drive, Beaver Estate Subdivision, Douglasville 30135. Before you, I have the zoning map. It is zone RLD. This is an aerial image of the property. As you can see, it's highlighted in red. This is the plot of the property. The property is highlighted in purple. And this is a front street view of the property. And based on the special use permit criteria, the applicant does meet the criteria. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of this requested special use permit S2023-28 with the following findings and directives to staff. Findings: the use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglasville County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. That concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. I'll open the public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, you would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Is the applicant present? Or the applicant's representative? No. Okay, anyone wishing to speak in favor? Hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the comments from staff. Do you have any questions of staff since the applicant is not present?
Is there any, does that make any difference, the fact that they're not here, or is?
It does not. You may still take action without the applicant being present. Our code does recommend that the applicant be present to speak in regard to the application, but it does give authority to the board to take action without the applicant being present.
And your recommendation was to approve, correct?
That was the recommendation of staff to approve, yes.
Right, thank you.
Any other comments, Planning and Zoning Board?
Chairman Rob Thomas, I have a question for staff. Is this particular house in a subdivision, do you know?
Yes.
It is in a subdivision?
Yes,
Okay.
the name of the subdivision is Bear.
Okay. Beaver, okay.
Estate.
But it's, well, I mean, with HOA, I'm sorry. HOA subdivision?
No.
It's not HOA?
No.
Okay. Is any emails or letters come in opposing?
There was some opposition at the community information meeting. However, I have not received any phone calls and or emails.
Oh, so there's some questions, but nothing came in writing? Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners for any comments or questions you may have.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff regarding application S 2023-28, special use permit, Airbnb? Commissioner Robinson.
Staff, whose district is this in? District 2?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew this. All right, so, no HOA? Yes, to HOA.
No to HOA.
All right. My office did not receive any communication directly from the citizens surrounding that they had some type of opposition. I'm duly noted about what's in the packet that might have been submitted to, obviously, staff. No further questions, I yield. I'm going to leave it at that.
Any other questions? None, I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Planning and Zoning Board. Do I have a motion on S 2023-28?
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman, of the staff?
Sure.
Mr. Johnson, do you know how long this house has been operated as an Airbnb without a special use permit?
I do not.
I mean, is it recently came to your attention?
Yes, within the past few months.
So
So we don't know the track record of the house, if they've had any complaints from law enforcement. We just don't know. We don't know if it's worked as an Airbnb with no issues, or if there have been issues. We don't know that.
I have not received any complaints, to the best of my knowledge. There haven't been any police reports. Code enforcement does do an analysis. They have no impacts.
So you don't know, other than what code enforcement has provided information to you, and the applicant isn't here to ask that question, though. So we don't know some things because the applicant isn't here to answer the question, right?
That is correct. However, if you choose to table it, that is completely up to the board and Board of Commission.
Mr. Johnson, I just have one question. Does the applicant live in the home?
Yes.
It's full-time?
Yes, the applicant does live in the home. She does rent out rooms in her home.
Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion to table S 2023-28, possibly allow the applicant to appear at the June 6, 2023 Planning and Zoning meeting.
I have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on that? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of tabling S 2023-28 until the June 6, 2023 meeting, please signify by raising your hand. What do we got? 4. All opposed? 2. Madam Vice Chair, it comes to you with a recommendation to table S 2023-28 until the June 6, 2023 Planning and Zoning Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, you have heard the recommendation from Planning and Zoning to table S 2023-28 until the June 6 meeting. What say you, Board of Commissioners? Commissioner Robinson, you have the floor.
All right, so, again, I'm going to ask a couple of questions before I respond to Madam Vice Chair. Specifically, Airbnb, and I guess my question is about the applicant process. So if you have no feedback from the citizens who had to come to a public hearing, please, and the applicant's not here, does that prohibit the board from making a decision? I understand the value of perfect information, and everything is not perfect. I mean, we can always get more information, but at some point, you got to make a decision. So the question I have to ask myself, do I kick this off to the next meeting, or do we have sufficiency to make the decision today? Will it make our life more richer, but I have a different position with seeing the applicant? So here's my question, seeing I can't see the applicant. How about that? So my question becomes to you is, what happens if we table this to our next meeting? We're saying the next meeting coming up. Staff, I'll let staff respond. The very next meeting? And if they don't show up, then what? Is there something that can be compulsory? This is not like court. No, I want to clarify. Like, I mean, when you got to go across that hall, that's a different animal. But what is the position regarding this matter? Is that, are they required to be here, and have we ever made decisions without the applicant being here? Two different questions.
Commissioner Robinson, the applicant is encouraged to be here, but you can take action without them being present in the meeting. If you were to table this to June 6th, we would certainly reach out, confirm with them that they still are inclined to move forward with their application. They do have the option to withdraw, so they could withdraw. We've not received any indication that this applicant chooses to withdraw, so we would make sure that they understood that their presence should be required at the June 6th meeting, if that is your inclination. To your point, I don't have a mechanism to compel them to appear.
Got it. No problem. And I understand things could happen, life, traffic, whatever case, they couldn't be here. There was intention. We don't know what their motive was, so I won't say that they were blowing this off, but also believe in asking for the vote I do believe in, like, no, you got to come holler at me if you need my support. So for that, Madam Chair, I make a recommendation that we accept the recommendation to table this as rendered by the Planning and Zoning Board.
So I have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor of tabling S 2023-28 until the June 6th Planning and Zoning meeting, please raise your right hand. We have a motion to table. Second. Everybody, it's unanimous vote, and we pass it back over to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. At this point in time, Mr. Schaefer, you have our next agenda item, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The next agenda item, Z 2023-29, Land Bridge Development LLC, request for a rezoning from RLD to PRD, Planned Residential Development, for a 64-unit senior housing facility located at 4947 Stewart Mill Road in Douglasville. Application filed by Land Bridge Development in Commissioner District 3. Subject tract is located on the southeast side of Stewart Mill, and the properties are developed with single-family homes, yards, storage structure, and some woods. The project is now being heard again. This was heard previously under Z 2022-49, which the Commissioners denied on May 3rd, 2022, so the proper time limit has been exceeded so that they can, in fact, reapply for this project. The project has been adjusted to some extent so that it can meet some of the concerns that were voiced previously. This is the zoning map of the properties showing that it is currently RLD. Here's an aerial of the properties showing the residences to the east on the right and the vacant properties across the street, Stewart Mill, which incidentally has come into me with a 41-unit subdivision directly across the street. That's on my desk right now. This is a survey of the property, and here is the actual site plans for the property. They have modified slightly where they would like to do the sewer. So as you see on the right is the easement they will need to get to provide sewer for the development itself, going to the north along Stewart Mill instead of across the street, which was previously what they thought they might do. The project now calls for a main residential unit of 3 stories, but only 2 single-story fourplexes instead of the original 4. The site plan's been modified again so that the detention pond has been moved slightly away from the residences to the west in order to accommodate some of their concerns as well. Here is some elevations of what they propose to do for the main building and for the single-family detached units. Here is a picture looking, it's going to be west along Stewart Mill here at the traffic signal where Creekwood comes in. Approximately where we're standing looking west is where they would cross Stewart Mill to catch up to the sewer and some of the commercial development on the west side of Stewart Mill. And here we're looking westerly along Stewart Mill at the proposed entrance, which is to the project just ahead on the left. Here's the 2 lanes. And again, we are improving Stewart Mill at Reynolds, so the traffic study executive summary recognized that in fact Stewart Mill is being improved at Reynolds, which should improve some of the traffic situation coming around that curve as it smooths out and we get an additional lane, turn lane, and traffic signalization going forward. In terms of level of service at Stewart Mill and Reynolds, currently it's a level of service E. Clearly without the traffic signal and not the improvements, it's a long time to try and get from Reynolds onto Stewart Mill. However, under the zoning criteria, we have reviewed all the criteria for the project, and it does meet all of the zoning criteria for this proposal. We have a number of letters in support coming in that came in time for the package. So we have the House of Representatives, Ms. Alexander sent in a letter, and we have the neighbors and the property owners also here submitting letters of support for the proposal. Again, staff is recommending approval of Z 2023-29 from RLD to PRD with the findings that the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, the uses permissible in the proposed zoning district are generally compatible with the zoning surrounding properties. And C, the granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect public health, safety, or welfare. Single condition that the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in specific agency impact statements reviewed in the staff report dated May 2nd, 2023. DRC shall have discretion to direct staff to schedule the zoning action to be brought back for return to the Planning Commission and Board of County Commissioners to consider rezoning the property at a regularly scheduled zoning hearing if the property fails to comply with the required conditions or other applicable codes or regulations. With that, I turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schaefer. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, please approach the podium. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Gary Hammond. I reside at 1836 Whitmere Way in Dunwoody. I am the applicant with Landbridge Development. I work in Sandy Springs, and I've been in business in Georgia for 29 years. I stand before you tonight to urge your support for our proposal to rezone the property at Stewart Mill Road and Jennifer Lane for an affordable senior housing community. Our application represents an opportunity to make a positive difference in the lives of seniors in your community who are in dire need of affordable housing. There is a critical need for senior housing in Douglas County. Many seniors struggle to make ends meet, and finding safe and affordable place to live has becoming increasingly difficult for them. Our community will provide a partial solution to this problem by offering seniors a safe and welcoming community where they can age in place. Our market study estimates a net demand for 499 senior rental units, which takes into account planned and under construction communities like Sweetwater Point and Hazel Park. We will offer 64 units of high quality, safe, and affordable housing to seniors aged 55 and older, earning up to $5,100 per month. Our community will not only offer an affordable housing option for seniors, but it will be also a place where seniors can feel a sense of belonging and community. Our community will provide on-site management, 24-hour maintenance, and ensure our residents feel safe and secure at all hours of the day. In addition, we will offer a range of amenities promoting health and wellness for tenants like a fitness center, wellness center, and community gardens. These amenities will allow residents to stay active and engage in social activities with their neighbors, which is essential for seniors' overall well-being and quality of life. In conclusion, I respectfully request you to approve our request to rezone the property for senior housing. Our development will not only provide much-needed senior housing, but also create a community where seniors can thrive and live their best lives.
Okay.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium, state your name and address. You have 2 minutes.
Greg Vig, 4895 Jennifer Lane, Douglasville, Georgia. I'm in support of the rezoning and Landbridge's plans for building the senior complex in Douglasville. The senior population in Douglasville continues to grow, yet there's not adequate housing available that meets the needs of the seniors. My wife and I and members of the community were able to go down and tour one of Landbridge's developments in Villa Rica, senior developments down there. That development is of similar design and uses a similar model for the overall working of the complex, its business model. What we found was that the common areas, the grounds were very well kept, very clean. The buildings, the facilities, the infrastructure, well maintained. While we were there during the tour, we were able to speak with several of the residents who were going to and from their homes. There was no criticism of the complex. All of the remarks were very positive about those people's experiences of living in that community. I recognize that no one really wants to see a change in their neighborhood. But positive change is vital for a community to continue to grow and support those neighborhoods. This development, in my opinion, would be positive change, offering enhancement to the community in Douglasville as a whole. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. If you'd state your name and address for the record, then you would have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Wendy Gamble with Southern Home Solutions, 12461 Veterans Memorial Highway. I'm the listing agent for this property, and I just want to make it clear because some of the neighbors in the area were concerned about this being a government housing or Section 8 program, and I just want to be clear that that's not what is being proposed here, that these people who are the seniors will need to have an income between $2,200 to $5,100 a month, so we're not talking about people who are just living off the government. I also want to say, too, that there's a similar community on Connors Road in Villa Rica, which is within Douglas County. And when I called and spoke with them there, they are working on a wait list from the year 2018 to get residents in. That's how backed up we are in the county with providing affordable housing for our seniors. And as we all know, we're not getting any younger. And I know my parents are at the age where they're starting to have to look for some type of senior housing. And you know, I'm sure you guys are all in the same position. I'd like to be able to keep our citizens in the county. They've all been active in the county their whole lives, and they don't want to have to leave. So I just ask that you take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If you would state your name and address for the record, then you would have 2 minutes.
Gloria Miller, 4820 Ivy Lane, Douglasville, Georgia. I'm also the property owner of the proposed renovation. I want to, and I have to read this because I'll never get it all straight. I'm here to represent the seniors, okay? For many years when you worked your first job and you retired, you thought that was going to be enough, okay? But the outlook for the economy right now, people are finding that they aren't able to make ends meet. I found that when I retired from the United States Army Nurse Corps back in 1997. I thought everything was going to be fine. No such luck. I ended up working another 20 years, so a total of 45 years of working, and I'm just now being able to say, okay, I might be able to make it. There are an awful lot of people in the community that can't say that. Okay, they're on a fixed income. They may have mobility issues. They may not be able to go back to work. So that's why I'm trying to support this program. As for being neighbors, because I was at the last town hall meeting that you all had, seniors, they go to bed early, except for me. There's no loud parties, okay? They control who come and go. They usually avoid traffic. They want to be in a community that has the same needs like their needs, okay? They look out for one another. And I'm encouraging Douglas County to embrace the senior population just as they embrace the schools, the entertainment, and business. And like the new movie studio that's coming in, okay? And one last note, I'm assuming that you're going to get more revenue as opposed to the taxes that I pay on the one property if you increase the number of people in the property. So that's a moneymaker. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. If you would state your name and address for the record, you would have 2 minutes.
Yeah, my name's Autumn Bridgers. Address is 2853 Rainy Road. I come here as a former employee of Douglas County. I worked at the Woody Fight Senior Center for 10 wonderful years. I cannot tell you how many seniors I've had come into that building from when I started to 2020 that were looking for housing for seniors 55 and older. That wasn't assisted living, that wasn't nursing home. They weren't to that point. These are our seniors that are active in this community that need a place to live. They need affordable places to live. And with disappointment, you know, us being the community and the community center for the county at that time, the only one at that time, to be able to say, I'm sorry, we don't have anything in Douglas County, was very hard, okay? These are people I see every day. I'm still friends. There's several of them here in the audience that are with us that, I'm still friends with. And to see that this still is a problem was concerning. And so, when Connors Road came in, that development, they actually held one of our ice cream socials and sponsored that. They had a waiting list before they even started breaking ground. I mean, there's a problem here. There needs to be some type of senior housing provided for our seniors in Douglas County. So I just ask that you consider your community and that you consider voting and approving this.
Thank you very much. Should state your name and address for the record, sir.
Ronnie Miller, 4820 Ivy Lane, Douglasville, 30135. Well, as a retired vet, I'm at that age, I'm almost 70, and it's time for me to get rid of the big house. And where did I go? I don't want to leave Douglasville, but I don't want to go to an apartment complex where kids are running around. I want to be around people my age, okay? Where we can communicate. I can't communicate with an 18-year-old. I can't communicate with a 21-year-old. So if we approve this project, that will give me a place to go. 55 and above, I can communicate with those people because we have something in common. Age is number one, okay? And if you search Douglasville, it's hard to find a place for us to go and live. And like I say, I was lured by the video that come to Douglasville. I'm sure y'all you have seen it. I loved it. Now I'm here. I don't want to leave, but there's no place for me to go when I say, hey, I'm getting out the big house and I want to go somewhere with people like me. And this project, I think we really, really need in Douglasville because there is no housing for people like us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You state your name and address for the record, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Jana Barnby, 7734 St. James Court. And this hits really close for me. My parents recently moved into an active living center after 34 years in their home because of my dad's mobility. They would have preferred to have moved here, close to me, but they couldn't. They lived a life where they lived within their means and was able to save. But because they lived within their means and saved, they had too much money to get any assistance, but not enough to move into the homes that required so much each month. So they moved into a community in Union City whose focus was to have affordable living. My mom, I just asked her, I said, what are the things you love? She said limited traffic and walking paths. So they're encouraged to get out, but they're not having to worry about traffic around them. Easy access to neighbors to help with loneliness. Sorry. A sense of a safe community. And just homes that were designed for them. My dad uses a walker, so he needed to make sure he had mobility throughout his house, and that's how most of these places are designed. And as a daughter, peace of mind. I know my parents are somewhere where they're safe. They have community to help them. They have someone they can call, but yet they still have independent living. So I appreciate you considering this. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have 2 minutes left, I believe.
I'll be quick. Okay, I'm Wanda Vick. I'm at 4895 Jennifer Lane, Douglasville, Georgia. And our family have been residents of Douglas County since 1957. We currently have several members who are residents of Douglas County, and we own multiple properties here. We, up to this point, made no plans to move from Douglas County in the event that our residence on Jennifer Drive sells. We have been and will continue to be invested in the growth and viability of this area. We only see a positive outcome from the proposed development. This community and our property has been very good to us. The property at Stewart Mill Road is at some point, if not now, going to be developed. There's no doubt that we will be here again, if it doesn't pass today. In looking at the possibilities of what could be developed in that area, we believe that a residential property for others who desire to live in our community and that provides some green spaces for our community is far better than what I can only imagine could be a parking lot in our front yard or our backyard and/or dumpsters to look at. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor?
My name's Sam Coates. My address is 3350 Riverwood Parkway, 30339.
I work with Resource Housing Group. We are a partner with Landbridge Development on this development. I know I'm limited on time, so the main point I would like to make here is that we are a long-term owner of this project. We're not coming to Douglasville trying to make a quick buck. We believe in this housing product. We will be an owner of this project for 15 years and likely 30 years. And I ask you to rezone this parcel to bring some housing options to rent-burdened seniors in Douglas County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Seeing no one else moving, I'll open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this, please approach the podium. We have 15 minutes allocated. That would be 2 minutes per person. See a number of people lining.
Look at within a 20-mile radius of Douglasville, we have over 20 Dollar Generals, 23 Mexican restaurants. We have 17 vape stores, 18 car washes. Within 5-mile radius, we have 6 Waffle Houses and 9 liquor stores. At the end of the day, we keep bringing more stuff to Douglasville. What ends up needing to happen is the BOE, the BOC, the Chamber of Commerce, and Planning and Zoning need to get together as a unified front. The Chamber of Commerce needs to go out and find the kind of businesses that the constituents want to have here, a Trader Joe's, a Sprouts. You're rebuilding downtown Douglasville to have a revitalized community with supposedly high-end shops, restaurants, and that kind of stuff. Within a mile away, though, you have a 288 subsidized unit apartment complex that the maximum amount of money that someone can make is $67,000 for a family of 6. That family of $67,000 is not going to go a mile away and walk up and get to be able to enjoy your high-end restaurants, all this other stuff. We keep continuing to create and bring businesses and things to Douglasville that the constituents don't want, and it's not going to help us continue to grow in the direction we want to go. There are already 2 other senior citizens things that are already starting to be built. At the end of the day, like 2 of the people who came up here are going to benefit one way or another from them saying that they're all for it. What we just don't understand, you know, talking about 55 and up, they make it sound like I'm in my 50s, like either they're going to contribute to the taxes because someone said, well, now we're going to get more taxes because you've got all these people in here, or they're not going to contribute to anything in Douglasville because according to them, they don't drive, they don't go anywhere, they're in their bed at 8 o'clock, they're locked and stocked. People still have to work, especially these days, until they're well in their 60s. So to make it sound like we're talking about people who are going to be stuck in their home, then what are they going to contribute to the area? The other thing is we already have 186 single-family townhomes by the mall, all of which will have to travel either Highway 5 or Chapel Hill Road to get to 20. Once again, already adding a congested area. At the end of the day, we're going to continue to bring lower income stuff into the area, and into that same area, you're going to start lowering my property taxes. Guess what I pay for property taxes? Over $7,000. That we'll discuss on another day. But you start lowering my property values, at the end of the day, you're losing a huge tax revenue base. Thank you.
2 minutes. Thank you very much. Please state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. My name's Nicola White. I live at 6080 Kingston Drive. Feels like deja vu. Not much has really changed since the last time I was standing here. And the gentleman was telling us how Douglasville needed to change Stewart Mill Road to accommodate his project. The change at Reynolds Road is really not going to have a major impact on the entrance that he's proposing. We're still living on a 2-lane road in an already congested area of single-family home neighborhoods, and the residents of the neighborhood most impacted still don't want it next door. He has said it's an ideal location in the past. Of course it is. We, the homeowners, the residents of Douglasville, have worked hard to make it so, and now it feels like someone wants to come in and take advantage of our hard work with no regard for the negative impact on our investment. We work hard to make sure it's a safe, quiet, comfortable area of family-friendly neighborhoods, and if we were okay with living next door to subsidized home housing, we would have saved our money and lived elsewhere. When there's a significant disparity in financial means, sometimes it's often detrimental to those who appear to have more, who become a target when they think they have more. There's no thought to what the hard work is that it took to get there. And so now they want to change the dynamic of a long-established community to shoehorn in a completely disparate type of project. And then there's the renter versus homeowners. As homeowners, we take pride in ownership. We spend money on the upkeep. I mean, I know I spend a ton of money on home improvement in our stores. And the impact to property value, already our neighbors, some of them are talking about leaving if this gets approved. And so we're going to trade upper middle and upper income constituents with higher buying power for less taxes. And if our property values are lower, it means lower property tax revenue for Douglas County. And the claim that subsidized housing can bring up our property value, it just depends on the location. So while we understand the need, it's just not the right location, as it wasn't when it was disapproved last time.
Thank you very much.
Good
State your
evening.
name and address. You have
Yes, good
2
evening.
minutes.
My name is Desiree Naylor. I'm a property owner, 3125 Melissa Court. I purchased that property 8 years ago for my forever home, my retirement home. I was here the last meeting last year when he was trying to get it approved. I opposed then, I oppose now. Reason being is my property, backyard, I bought it for the serenity and I love the neighborhood. And he didn't speak on how it's going to affect the properties on Melissa Court, which is going to be directly in my backyard, you might say, because it's the rear. And so what'll happen is they'll tear down, put up lights. My bedroom, my other bedrooms face that area, so now I'm looking at lights and I'm looking at a parking lot. So I asked you, how would you feel having a parking lot in your backyard? I'm a senior, you know, I worked and I saved to have a serene space, and that's where I'm at with that. But also, sidebar on the traffic, it's right off of Chapel Hill, which crosses Stewart Parkway. It's already congested. I mean, I applaud him for wanting to build, but that location is the wrong location to build. I wish that y'all will join me in opposing it and let him just build somewhere else. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. If you'd state your name and address for the record, you have 2 minutes.
My name is Patricia Goddard. I live at 4882 Jennifer Lane, and as you can see on the map, this, like my neighbor over here, it backs up right in back of our house. When we bought our property, we assumed it would be single-family homes, single-family dwellings. The first thing they did after a couple years was one of the property owners on Chapel Hill went to the city and had that rezoned so they could build a Kohl's. Now, since that has happened, that also pushed back into our neighborhood. So now we have a psychic reading business on one side and a bank and Kohl's and also a liquor store. So in other words, now these people are going to come in. They want to do this retirement residential development. We are literally being squoze out, literally. If you came into our neighborhood and took a ride around, you would see that we're literally being squozed out of our neighborhood. I mean, what do you want us to do? I mean, are we just going to just continue to keep this going and going and going till there's nothing left? We have one of probably the most beautiful neighborhoods in Douglas County, diverse, of every ethnicity, of every religious persuasion. It's a marvelous neighborhood, but we're tired of being squozed out. Now, I understand the people before that are in favor of it. Two of the people I do know because they're selling their property, so they financially gain. Of course they're for it. The other people, they don't live in our neighborhood. They're not affected by it. Nobody is going to be affected by it but us. We have traffic problems. My husband I'm sorry, I'll be really quick, because it's a good point. My husband, he was in the service and lost a lot of his hearing. He lost the rest of it by coming out of our subdivision and being broadsided and lost the rest of his hearing. This lady over here with the glasses, her husband died because
You've got an
he didn't
entire
make
line
it-
of people behind
I
you
know.
waiting.
He didn't make it to the hospital because we could not get out of that she couldn't get out of that neighborhood because of traffic. Thank you.
Okay. I believe we've got about 6 minutes left in our 15-minute allocation, so
I'll be quick. Rosalind McDonald, 2031 Sweet Bay Drive. I spoke last year. I'm speaking again. Last year, I offered my services as a realtor. There is 8 acres right across the street from this building. It's on the main highway. You're right next to the hospital. You've got Kroger restaurant. It's a perfect location. The location on Stewart Mill does not work. Traffic is already out of control. It's going to get even more out of control.
thank you very much. State your name and address. You have 2 minutes.
Good evening. This is Eddie Curtis, 6068 Kingston Drive. I want to focus on the safety of this development. The developer characterized this as long-term, being 15 years, being a senior community. My belief is that this could turn into a low-income community, and if all of the traffic impacts are based on it being a senior citizen facility, then how do you characterize those traffic impacts over the long term should the nature of the residents change? Right, so we're suggesting that seniors don't travel as much as people that are between, say, younger residents. So then how do those traffic patterns change? Is the traffic impact report legitimate? I also want to focus on just safety. There are effectively no pedestrian facilities between Yancey Road and Chapel Hill Road. And if these residents are going to be walking, riding scooters, how do they access the commercial and the retail land use that, they're saying that they want to get access to? So notwithstanding this development, I would like to admonish the committee to consider more consistent pedestrian and bicycle access along Stewart Mill Road. I know there's a new intersection being built, but there are no continuous sidewalks, and there's quite a lot of speeds. And if you drive this route, you will note several memorials for pedestrians that have lost their lives on Stewart Mill Road. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thelma Westerly, Winterview Lane, Douglasville. I would just like to remind, and maybe some of you weren't living here then, but when Arbor Mall opened, this whole area was gridlocked for 3 days. The traffic was horrible. And I anticipate that this is going to grow with this community, the community that is being built by Arbor Mall, and the one down on 92. They're all going to be shopping in our supermarkets. You can't park in our supermarkets now. So these people are still driving at 55. I'm 84 and I still drive. So I implore you to think about this from the point of view of traffic alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Tawana Train Henry. I live at 9828 Forest Hill Drive in Chapel Hill Community. I was here last year when you opposed, and I am appalled at the land bridge development. I wrote a note, but they totally did a 180 in their presentation tonight. They did not talk about a lot of the things. One main thing that they mentioned, the young man said they plan to be a 15-year community. The first visit they said there will be management there for 4 years, average of 3 to 4 years, and then they cannot confirm if the same management will still be there. They said that if it's not at capacity, they will not be able to confirm that they would keep it at low-income, affordable housing. And I say low-income that is so passionately because they didn't mention that. They now want to change the verbiage and the narrative to affordable housing. And they said that even if they don't reach capacity, they cannot confirm that they can keep it at 55 and above. So you know what that brings. So that brings me here. So Stanford Graduate School of Business and Zillow did studies concluding that low-income housing development, affordable housing, does not increase the home value within does increase the home value within established low-income neighborhoods, but in medium to high income neighborhoods, according to the study, it decreases the value by 2.5%. We do not need our home values decrease. We just saw an uptick. Unfortunately, we're looking at recession in the window. So if we hit recession and then we have this community come behind our community, we are not only going to see our home values drop because of the recession, but also because of this community by 2.5%. Also, the second thing I want to mention, save our neighborhoods. The aesthetic of our neighborhoods is going to be outrageous. Third thing, I'm going to go quick. I heard my buzzer. Quality of life in our community will be totally decreased. We will have to, because Land Bridge Development cannot promise they will keep this at a 55 and above, that will bring in other types of neighbors.
Okay, that's your 2 minutes. I believe we're pushing up on our 15 minutes, are we not? How much? 42 seconds left.
I don't know if I can talk that fast. My name is Bonnie Miller. I live in 3620 Hardwick Court and in Douglasville. This is a Chapel Hill subdivision. And as the lady just said, one of the key takeaways that I had from last year was that the developer would not guarantee age restrictions. And he even said that there may be multifamilies in the units. I'm a nurse, and I also have a heart for the aging population. And I want the elderly to have a home and a place to live. My concern is not just the traffic for the surrounding areas, but the crime. An ADA here in the court told me to never go to the mall. She says she wouldn't go to the mall and for me not to go to the mall because of the crime. So I got to think about the safety of these elderly people who are also going to be living in these homes or whatever.
Okay, our 15 minutes is up. It's time to close the public hearing. I appreciate everybody's comments and everybody's presence on this matter. However, we need to keep our time. Planning and Zoning Board, you have heard the discussions, you've heard the questions. Do you have any questions or comments for staff or the applicant?
Chairman, I have a question for the developer. Oh, there you go. Hi.
Yes, sir.
So I was here last year. I remember you. Remember this whole situation. Some of the main things last year I remember was the big issue was the traffic pattern.
Yeah.
Issues with traffic. I think that was the main thing because of the intersection there, and I use that road all the time as well. I know exactly what they're talking about. I think that was the main push last year. This year is a little bit different. They kind of it's more talking about age restrictions. What is it? Low income housing. You kind of flipping the script here. You're making things a little different than it was. Than you had at their meetings, what they were saying. That what you said at the meeting, and what you said, and what you're saying here, it doesn't quite jive.
I don't understand why that is, because what has been said by the opposition is opposite of what I've committed to in every community meeting and last year here. The facts are that this property will be developed with a 30-year land use restriction that will be enforced by the state of Georgia for all of the compliance of resident incomes and for property conditions. Will be regularly inspected, and the band of income that I've talked about has changed from last year. Working with senior services in Douglas County, we've widened it to reach not only lower senior households, but higher senior households. And in terms of traffic, nothing has changed with the exception of Douglas County is improving Reynolds traffic. The traffic study shows that there will be minimal impact to level of service at any intersection. And we happen to benefit from a public improvement project at Reynolds Road, because that level of service is going from E to A. And we will have no impact on that whatsoever, based on our traffic study, which says that we will have 13 AM peak trips and 16 PM peak trips per hour.
Tell me again, how many units are you looking to have?
64, which are primarily one bedrooms with some two bedrooms, two bath.
And what do they rent for?
The maximum allowable rent, it will be between $700 and $1,700 per month. And that as if the utilities were furnished to the seniors.
So $700 to $1,700 a month?
Yes. And that's the maximum allowable. I'm not suggesting that that's what we will charge. For one, we will have to deduct the cost of utilities from any of the residents that they pay. So if the utilities are $100 per month, then that would now be $600 to $1,600. But we also have, an ability to compete with the rest of market rate housing and other affordable housing, and we will charge what the market will bear, and it will be less than $1,600. I don't believe we'll be able to rent our units for $1,600.
So you heard a realtor come up here, mention about some other locations. I mean, why so much this location? I just want to, because it's been a year and you came back again.
Yeah.
So why this location?
So this location was optimal last year and is optimal this year.
In what way?
In the way that we are encouraged is to diversify incomes. This is an excellent neighborhood with low poverty, high incomes, high employment, and the federal government and the state of Georgia want diversity in incomes. They want people to live amongst each other with all sorts of incomes. In this case, our residents, because of working with Douglas Senior Services, will have incomes between $2,250 and $5,100 per month residing in a neighborhood with primarily single-family homeowners. But that's the amount of money that they will earn to be eligible to live at this property. And that is encouraged. So because it's encouraged, we can be competitive and most likely receive an award if we're in this specific location. And I'm aware that there's a location at West Stewart Mill that's not too far away that was zoned several years ago. That isn't even close to being competitive, even though it seems like a similar neighborhood. So as a developer, the business owner, I go where I'm being encouraged to be successful. Otherwise, we're wasting your time and we're wasting everybody else's time trying to put an application together that ultimately will not score, will not win.
So when you say encourage, what you're saying really is the government or some type of agency that's going to subsidize, because of this particular neighborhood, the median income, et cetera. Is that how it scores at a certain level to say this is going to be profitable?
That's fair. There's geographic scoring preferences that is put into what they call a qualified allocation plan that the state of Georgia puts out as the allocating agency. And that geographic preference is good for this specific location because of low poverty, high employment, good health indicators, and other things. And it's by census tract.
But is it that granular? I mean, is it that close that this particular neighborhood, this lot, this plot, but yet a mile away, is it that granular that it doesn't affect that same score would not be given in a mile away?
Yes, sir. I mean, in fact, I can't go across the street to 5010 Stewart Mill and be competitive. It's that granular because the census tract changes. Stewart Mill Road is the dividing line of two census tracts.
Okay, interesting.
And most people don't really want to hear that. I mean, but that is the business side of this. And ultimately, the public purpose is to have a diversity of incomes. That it's good for people to have to live in neighborhoods with diverse incomes. They don't want us concentrating housing in low-income areas.
I understand your point. I just make sure everyone else understands as well.
Yes, sir.
Because that is a very good point. That is that granular that across the street makes a difference.
Yes, sir.
I yield.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned something about another location in Villa Rica. Is that one of your properties?
No, we conducted a tour of the legacy of Walton Trail, which is done by an industry veteran in the same space that we're in, developing housing. And that's not mine, but they are one of the best affordable housing developers in the state of Georgia, and it's a beautiful property.
Are all the units filled? Do they have a waiting list? Do you know anything?
I do. They're 100% occupied. They have a range of income similar to what we're proposing, and they have a long waiting list.
Okay. It was one of the major concerns in Douglas County. I work with a lot of the seniors, and there is definitely a need for housing for seniors. And so I just wanted to see whether or not, we're talking about the same units.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Madam Chairman, I'll throw it over Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have of the applicant or staff.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for staff or the applicant who is at the podium now, Commissioner Robinson, regarding this application? Yes.
All right. So I know we're toward the end of this. So again, I do hear it, but I've got to be consistent for record. It's important when we speak that it gets codified. We have a set of residents that I moved here and I've been here my entire adult life since 1990. Yes, I know about Ingalls and Publix that were cow pastures. I get it. We've evolved, right? So now I'm listening. I'm like, listen to this narrative about the seniors, which is like, wait a minute, you're talking about mother. What are y'all saying? They can't live amongst us because of what now? I am stunned, but I get it. We always have to make the tough decision like, wow. Look how we think about our seniors like they and them. Their productivity. Well, they didn't add it to the system. They pay for your grandparents. Ooh, wow. Now I get it. Now I get the financial model. I'm going to let that go because I get how they're funding this. I'm like, oh, that's what it is. Got it. Dang, you bought it back. You sold it and you bought it back in the same comment. But I hear y'all. But the county does have to deal. No more do we have to deal with the youth, your children, that are between the 23 and 26 years old. Where they going to live? We can't be self-righteous and be duplicitous and like, okay, now how I'm going to render this? So they want the seniors and the kids not to be around. We just want our world, and we don't want nobody around us. We want them to live around us, be down the street, and everybody has this perspective of down the street, just not in my backyard. But if y'all all got the same myopic view, then that means that there will be no development. But again, I get it. It's about location. I get it, and I don't think that's an absolute sense. That is not the absolute sense of the room. But I'm listening to the claps and why y'all clapped at certain, political points. I'm like, I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I can stand with that. Because I believe they do need housing options, and we know this. This should have been done before this administrator got here. Now, I do know that this current, Allison, is doing a great job as far as zoning. Right. Y'all need to be involved in these meetings we keep trying to get you out on. To talk about, well, where are we going to put this in the future? How will this develop? Because they are going to age. You're going to age. Everybody's not going to be in the same place you think you will be 20, 30 years from now. Life can happen. Not take this one serious. So what are y'all saying? Like, really? But I get that. I'm not saying that you don't believe in they should have quality housing, just perhaps not in your backyard, like my earlier comments. I get it. I can argue that point right there, like take a position. But to the extent that this is not important for us, for the youth and for the seniors, I can't support that position. Yes, it is. And we do need housing options. It is about location. But to think that we should not be considering it, and yes, they can have whatever financing option they want to. The question is, should we make a decision about this right here. I want to clarify my position. Like, well, it's really about this location. Do I stand behind it? Absolutely. Do I believe in this type of? Absolutely. And with that, Madam Vice Chair, I yield the floor.
Thank you. Any other questions regarding this? Commissioner Alcaraz, you have the floor.
Sir, you mentioned the legacy of Walton Trail. That's right there near the new hospital, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you just mentioned in regards to the area location and how it has to be placed in a certain area with certain, I guess you could say, incomes. But this one is right beside a very low income area because I live not far from there. So can you explain as to why that statement was just made in regards to where it has to be placed?
Yes. So there's a number of different paths to an award, and that happened to be what's called a rental assistance demonstration project with the Housing Authority, which is given a high government preference because of the public housing nature. So Walton came in and replaced public housing with mixed income housing, and those types of applications always score well and are funded every year in the state.
Okay. Explain to me more about this award you've done brought up twice.
So the financing that we use are state and federal tax credits, and they are a very finite, scarce resource that is handed out annually by the federal government, but the states administer and allocate the credit. In Georgia, each year, there's an application process, one per year, and developers like me who've been specializing in this for 20 plus years interpret the qualified allocation plan, which is the blueprint for how to apply based on the set of standards that the state has set for where they would like this housing to be dispersed across the entire state, to be fairly dispersed in rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas. So we apply every year, and there's usually 3 to 5 applications for every award.
Okay. And I'm just going to stop because I know I'm limited on time here, but the young man back there said you own it for 15 years now. You're saying you'll stay on it for 30 years.
So he's, like me, extremely transparent and never wants to be caught saying something that you shouldn't say. The program land use restriction is 30 years. So it encourages long-term ownership. So in actuality, we seldom ever exit before 15 years because that's the compliance period, the initial compliance period, but the state of Georgia has required it to be 30 years. So it is very unlikely that he, who works for a nonprofit, whose mission is housing, and me, who's a for-profit developer, will ever exit this development for the next 30 years. And everywhere I go, my motto is that I partner with communities like yourselves, and you can access me as a resource at any time in the future regarding this. I am still involved in most of the 37 properties I've sponsored over my career. I still own almost all of them.
Okay. And can you assure, because I know when they just built that senior area out at Mirror Lake on Connors Road, in the beginning, there were issues with seniors allowing other residents to come live with them. That was a big issue for a long time, and I know they dealt with that. And so can you assure these citizens, or can you assure our county that that's not going to happen at your facility?
Yes, I can. Now, I can't say it's not going to be tried, but it's in our property rules that you have to be on the lease to be there. And also, a statement was made about age, and I've committed that we will self-manage this so that there's nobody below 55 and younger in this. It's 55 and older, regardless of whether it's a spouse, and that we will commit to those ages through our property rules. And with regard to the commitment on occupants, they are not allowed to have overnight guests beyond a certain period of time, and it's a violation of the lease, and they'll be evicted if that occurs.
Okay. And just my last comment is, I hope that our community does understand, and I'm not saying that this is going to pass, but I hope we all understand there is a dire need for senior areas for our seniors to live. It's very important. They are running out of options around here. I would love to see more senior communities in our area. But I'm going to yield back, Madam Vice Chair, for other discussions.
Thank you, Commissioner Alcaraz. Commissioner Alcaraz asked a lot of my questions, the age restrictions, the management for 15 years. I did have a chance to tour the property that we're discussing, and it was absolutely beautiful, and it's someplace that I would want, if my mother or my grandmother were living, I would love for them to have had that opportunity to live in a facility such as that. Y'all know how I am about my seniors, right? I do my Meals on Wheels. I go out my way to ensure that my seniors have everything that they need, because guess what? I have more time behind me than I do in front of me, right? So I'm getting there. I'm right there with you. This is a hard one, right? Because Douglas County, we do need senior housing. I live right there off Chapel Hill, so I understand my neighbors when they say, no more. We have enough cars on the road. We have enough people. We're over congested now. We're only on a two-lane road. This is hard. We have got to do a better job of managing our resources, managing traffic, managing roads, managing sidewalks. It just so happens that when all the development came, the prior administration did not require the things that we are requiring now, because we see the outcome of not having actually planned this. So what I will say is we do have a lot of citizens in here. We have a CPU study going on right now that the Board of Commissioners is doing with ARC. That's our comprehensive plan update. I would implore each and every one of you sitting in here today to go onto our Celebrate Douglas County website and voice your opinion about what you want to see. I heard about the Dollar Trees. I heard about the Waffle Houses. I see it. I'm in the community with you. If you don't want those things or you want to see other things, 1, you have to tell us. 2, you have to show up at the meetings. 3, you have to fill out the surveys. 4, you need to continue to come to meetings like this, not just when it's in your backyard, but this whole entire community is ours together, okay? So I just want to say that. But I thank you for bringing this to us. Don't know if it's going to pass, but again, great project. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you go, one thing. Should we have a motion to approve this? One of the things in that motion would be the condition that was read in. Are you in agreement with that condition?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do I have a motion, please, on Z 2023-29?
This is Frank Payne. I make a motion to approve Z 2023-29, a request for a rezoning for residential low density to planned residential development for senior living facility located at 4947 Stewart Mill Road and 4895 Jennifer Lane, Douglasville, 30135, with the conditions that were outlined by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Chairman, I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Planning and Zoning Board, do we have any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I will call for a vote. All in favor of approving Z 2023-29, please signify by raising your hand. All opposed? And we have, what do we have, 3 and 4?
3 and 3.
3 and 3, I break the tie. Well, I've already voted. Opposed. I oppose. 4-3. Do we have another motion, Planning and Zoning Board? We're not going to make another motion. We'll send it to the commissioners. We had a motion to approve, but it failed for a 4-3 vote.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, our Planning and Zoning is sending over application Z 2023-29 with the motion failed to approve this application. So I will entertain a motion regarding Z 2023-29.
Motion to approve Z 2023-29.
Do I have a second? I second it. I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Just want to clarify the comes with the condition that was read on record.
Yes, it comes with the condition that was read into record, and the applicant has accepted that condition. I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of Z 2023-29, raise your right hand. All those who oppose, motion carries 2-1, and the application is approved.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, I think we'll hold on a minute until the crowd exits. Security, get them out of here. We got 2 minutes.
That's a tough one.
Something's coming in.
Something going on. Something gonna be there sooner or later.
Sooner or later, something's coming in. And I'm not elected, so I don't care. That's interesting. And all the time I've been here, like I won't be able to get contacted twice. Yeah. 5-minute recess, Madam Chair.
How many more we got?
We got 3 more to go.
3 more. It looks like there ain't nobody else here for these 3, so we might want to keep going. I mean, if you got to go to the restroom, go.
Yeah, if you need to go back to the.
I gotta call him.
You didn't tell us ahead of time you were gonna be here till midnight. I told mine I'd be here till midnight. I hope they cut this out when they edit it for TV. Johnson, would you present our next item, please?
Yes. The next case, S2023-30, special use permit for the applicant Ashley Daughtry. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to operate a retail flooring store located at 7297 Lee Road, Lithia Springs, 30122. The current zoning map shows CG. However, at the last meeting, it was rezoned to CH, heavy commercial, with conditions. This is the area image of the property. This is the site plan / survey of the property. This is a street view of the property. This is looking south on Lee Road with the subject property to the right. This is looking north on Lee Road towards the intersection of Lee Road and South Sweetwater with the subject property on the left. And based on analysis done by staff, the special use permit criteria has been met, and staff recommends approval of requested special use permit S2023-30 with the following findings. The use will not modify the land use plan or the intent, purpose, or spirit of Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. And that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, including the applicant or the applicant's representative, we have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Ashley Doherty, 110 Osterley Way. I think I spoke to most of y'all last month. So I just wanted to just ask for your approval for the special use permit. I'll reiterate that we're a third-generation flooring store. We started in Douglas County in the 90s, or the early 90s, and we were in Douglas County for years, and we've been in Cobb for 13 years. And we're really looking forward to being able to bring our small mom-and-pop store. That's what it is. It's not even comparable to any large, big-box store that sells flooring in any way. So we're hoping that we can offer affordable services to our local community members that we live in the same community with. It's really hard to explain how important it is. I grew up, that was what I did as a child, on top of the carpet growing up, and I have a 3-year-old, and I'm hoping that he's going to be able to get to experience the same thing. It's very small. I just want to make that clear. As far as, we've only got 2 people who work in the actual building. Our installers are not going to bother anybody in the mornings. We don't open till 8:30. We close at 4:30, so it's not going to create any kind of intrusions on any members of the neighborhoods behind us. Nobody will know that we're there unless they come to look in the store. So that's really it.
Thank you, Ms. Doherty. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition, please approach the podium. Seeing no one moving, I will close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, you've heard the discussion. Do you have any questions of the staff or the applicant?
Quick question for staff, please. So I wasn't here last Planning and Zoning Board meeting. So what I understand is they did the rezoning already, was approved. I guess they needed some larger trucks or something. Is that why they go heavy commercial? Is that?
No, just, because of the nature of the business.
Nature of business?
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, that's been approved already. So now we just want to just approve the business itself, right? I mean, we approved the land, now we're just approving the business, right? That's all we're doing?
Yes.
Okay. So probably could have been done the same time, right? Same time? Yes, last time?
Yes, that was an error on staff's behalf of not running them together.
Okay, I think you did mention that. Okay.
Yes.
All right. I was wondering why are we doing it separate? I wasn't here. So why are we breaking this up? Okay. So no reason for breaking it up other than just an error only?
That's correct.
Okay. Sounds good. I just want to be, again, I wasn't here. I just want to be clear on that. All right, thank you. That's all the question I have.
Any other comments or questions, Planning and Zoning? Hearing none, Madam Vice Chair, I'll throw it over to the Board of Commissioners if you have any questions.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for the staff or the applicant regarding S 2023-30, a special use permit for retail flooring installation? Being none, Chairman Simmons, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, may I have a motion, please?
It's Brandon Penniman. I make a motion to approve application 2023, S 2023-30, with all stipulations as stated by staff.
Ori Curry, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving S 2023-30, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Vice Chair, it comes to the Board of Commissioners with a unanimous recommendation to approve S 2023-30.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board to approve S 2023-30, a special use permit. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion approved, S 2023-30, as recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a motion and a second. If there is no discussion, all in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously to approve S 2023-30. And Chairman Simmons, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Good luck to y'all. Mr. Johnson, would you present our next item, please?
Yes, the next application, S 2023-31, special use permit for applicant Laura Marshall. So in this case, it is a show cause hearing as well as a requested action. Staff is requesting a show cause hearing due to the fact the applicant has not complied with all required conditions for the following cases: S2019-11 and S2021-19. The case was originally heard in May of 2019, where the applicant was approved for a special use permit for alpaca farm tours and associated uses, including barn, birthday parties, yoga in the garden, spinning/fiber art classes, breeding and selling of alpacas, pick your own vegetables, and a seasonal pumpkin patch with the following conditions. The first condition, the approval of the request is valid for 2 years, at which time the applicant will need to apply for a special use permit renewal. Second, the applicant will have 3 months of the date of approval, which will be August 7, 2019, to have plans, applications, and permits for their public toilet area and septic system or approved alternative system approved by Environmental Health Department. The applicant will have 6 months of the date of approval of this special use permit application, which will be November 7th, 2019, to have installation of their approved public toilet area inspected and approved by Environmental Health Department. 4, the applicant will be required to meet all other environmental health requirements, including well water testing and food service licensing if applicable. 5, the public toilet area must be approved by the Douglas County Building Department by August 7th, 2019, and a passing final inspection must be made no later than November 7th, 2019. The public parking area must be gravel and must be approved by Douglas County. Number 7, the engineering department, it must meet inspection no later than August 7th, 2019. The applicant was heard again on December of 2021 for renewal of the special use permit and was approved with the following conditions. 1, the approval of the request is valid for 1 year, at which time the applicant will need to apply for a special use permit renewal. 2, the applicant will have 6 months of the date of approval of this special use permit application, which will be October 6, 2021, to have installation of approved public toilet area inspected and approved by Environmental Health Department. 3, the applicant will be required to meet all other environmental health requirements, including well watering testing and food service licensing if applicable. Thus far, the applicant has installed a septic system, however, has failed to build a public toilet area. In addition, the applicant is requesting a special use permit to operate an alpaca rescue located at 1320 Dorse Road, Douglasville, 30134. The site is 25 acres and contains a single-family residency and a large barn to house the alpacas, as well as the fenced-off area for their grazing. This is a zoning map. It is currently zoned RA. This is an aerial image of the property. This is the plot/survey of the property. And this is the street view of the property. And based on the special use permit criteria, the applicant does meet the criteria. Staff recommends approval of this requested special use permit S2023-31 with the following findings, conditions, and directives of staff. Findings: the use will not modify the land, use of plan, or the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. The granting of the special use permit will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. With the following conditions: the approval of this request is valid for 1 year, at which time the applicant will need to apply for a special use permit renewal. 2, the applicant will have 3 months of the date of approval of this special use permit application, which will be May 2nd, 2023, to have installed of their approved public toilet area inspected and approved by the Environmental Health Department, and the applicant will be required to meet all other environmental health requirements, including well water testing and food servicing licenses, if applicable. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Johnson. At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application, please approach the podium. That would be the applicant or applicant's representative or the public. You would have 2 minutes per person for a total allocated time of 15 minutes. State your name and address, please.
Laura Marshall, 1320 Doris Road, Douglasville, 30134. We ran into some challenges. We did get a septic tank put in. I just recently, as of this month, will have $750 freed up a month, so I'll be able to get the bathroom completed this year.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. Before you go, there were 3 conditions that he read into the record. Are you in agreement with those conditions?
I am.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of staff or the applicant?
Quick question of the applicant. Step to the podium for me. Are you close to North Douglas Elementary School?
I am.
Okay. I was just making sure this was the right one. That's all I need to know.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
But don't leave.
Oh, sorry.
I have a question
Sure.
for you. So where were people using the bathroom before, well, still are, using the bathroom now?
I have an ADA porta potty.
Porta potty scenario?
Yes.
Okay, since 2019? You've been
Yes.
using it? Okay. And
They come out every week and service it.
okay. All right, so you say you had some challenges. You see, and your agreement with the requirements, the conditions, 3 months to have it official bathroom there?
Correct.
Okay. All right, well, that's the only question. I just want to make sure, I don't know, I remember you here I remember 2019 when you came through, and it's just, it's been a long time. And
It has.
I hate for you to lose your license and everything if you don't comply. So please do.
Yes, I will. Thank you.
Any other questions, Planning and Zoning Board? Hearing none, Madam Vice Chair, I'll throw it to the Board of Commissioners for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for the staff or the applicant regarding S 2023-31, a request for special use permit to renew to continue the alpaca farm?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
Commissioner Alcaraz, you have the floor.
Just, we're talking about installing a toilet. Is that also going to include a sink area for someone to wash their hands? Because just as I'm reading this, it's talking about birthday parties and all that, and I know how kids like to, touch everything and everything like that. Is it going to include it somewhere for them to wash their hands as well? Or,
Yes, sir.
or do you currently already have a place where they can do that?
Well, we just use we have soap and a hose.
Okay, so this will include a sink or a proper area for them to wash their hands as well?
Yes, it will.
Okay, that's all I have, Madam Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Alcaraz,
back.
any other discussion regarding the special use permit? Being none, I turn it back over to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you. Planning and Zoning Board, do I have a motion?
Chairman, I make a motion to approve S 2023-31, a request for special use permit for renewal to continue the alpaca farm, animal rescue, farm tours, etc. 1320 Doris Road, Douglasville, 30134.
Second.
With the conditions?
With the conditions as presented by staff.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion?
Real quick, do you guys still have that crazy horse? Remember you had one little pony that was just crazy when we came to visit? No? Okay. Other than that, no questions. No statements.
I'll call the question. All in favor of approving S 2023-31, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Madam Vice Chair. It comes to the Board of Commissioners with a unanimous approval on S 2023-31.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation to approve S 2023-31 for a special use permit renewal to continue in Alpaca Farm with the conditions and findings as accepted by the applicant. Do I have a motion to approve?
Madam Vice Chair, I'd like to approve S 2023-31 with agreeance of all three of the conditions which were found by Planning and Zoning and the board.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? I have a motion and a second. All in favor of this approval, please raise your right hand. We have a 3-0 unanimous vote, and the motion carries to approve the application. Chairman Simmons, I turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Best of luck to you going forward. Let's see, Mr. Schaefer, you have our next agenda item, please, sir.
Actually, I believe I have our last agenda item. This is a combo, Z 2023-32 and S 2023-33 for Axis OIS LLC. It's a request for a rezoning from RLD and PUD to LI, light industrial, and a special use permit to allow truck repairs, parking, and outside storage located at 11030 Veterans Memorial Highway in Lithia Springs. This is in Commission District 1. Application signed by Axis OIS. The subject property fronts Veterans Memorial Highway. The site is developed with a central building, extensive gravel surface parking areas used to store vehicles and materials. Frontage along Highway 78 still retains some tree cover and setback buffering. The property was the subject of a rezoning approval under case 87-86, which rezoned the site from R2 to M1 industrial, approved April 7th, 1987. Subsequently, the owners came back to request a rezoning to PUD, planned unit development, so they could develop 21 individual industrial lots for small-scale contractor company facilities. The request was denied initially, but upon a second motion, conditioning the approval upon running a public sewer line into the project for any tracts that get created with less than 2 acres, and that request was authorized, and the property was converted to PUD. At that time, the site was about 4,000 feet away from sewer, and no sewer was ever connected to the site. In the subsequent years, one additional note, after reviewing the record and the old land lot maps, I looked at this and I have to conclude that there is a remnant RLD portion that was left in error between the property that was zoned PUD and the railroad tracks. That should have been zoned light industrial. It should not have, or gone to M1 and then been converted to LI later in years. It just wasn't done. In the intervening years, we've approved a lot of zoning maps, so the proper way to do this as a cleanup message is to actually take it through the rezoning process for the residential low density to convert to LI, and at the same time take the property that they're currently using in the front for truck repairs and storage and facilities that they currently use from PUD also to LI, and that's what we asked them to do, and adopt the special use permit to permit the outdoor storage of the vehicles and the materials that are currently on the property. This is the old land lot zoning map, which shows the original case in 87-86 being approved. This is a picture of the subdivision that was proposed at the time, and you can see that there's a chunk cut out of it, which is the chunk that remained RLD. So there was probably confusion at the time in the mapping that allowed that to stay RLD instead of be converted to M1. At any rate, the request this evening is to take the green PUD and the yellow RLD and turn it all into LI. This is a site plan, aerial view rather, of the site. You can see that it's currently being used. We would call that a non-conforming use, grandfatherable. Here is the survey of the site and the property and showing the existing building and some of the development improvements on the site. Here's a picture from veterans looking into the site at the current entrance, where you can see there is an existing deceleration lane and landscaping. And here we're looking directly into the site where you can see the building in the background. Here we're looking westbound on Highway 78 at the entrance to the property. The staff has reviewed the zoning criteria. It does meet all the zoning criteria to convert each property to LI. You'll hear that case first. And then staff has reviewed the special use permit criteria, finds that it does meet those criteria as well. We would ask you to support approval of that. Staff is recommending approval of the requested rezoning from RLD and PUD to LI with the following findings. A, the rezoning will not modify the intent, purpose, or spirit of the Douglas County Unified Development Code. B, proposed zoning is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan Categorization of this property is within the mixed-use corridor area incorporating varying commercial, industrial, and residential uses. C, the uses permissible in the proposed zoning district are generally compatible with the surrounding properties. D, the character of this immediate area has been heavy commercial, light industrial, and heavy industrial for several decades. And E, the granting of the rezoning will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare. Those are the findings for the rezoning. Staff is recommending approval of the special use permit with the following findings and condition, with the same findings rather, and condition that the applicant shall submit to the Development Review Committee for review and consideration the specific site development and access management plans to address the development standards in the UDC and the concerns and requirements expressed in the specific agency impact statements reviewed in this staff report dated May 2nd, 2023. With that, I turn it over. Here are our findings for the recommendation for the rezoning and other business. So that's it. Turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Schaefer.
Single chair.
At this point in time, I'll open the public hearing on this matter. Since we do have two items, we'll have one public hearing, and then we will vote on the rezoning before we vote on the special use, because if the rezoning fails, special use is moot. Mr. Fowler.
Evening again, everybody. Joe Fowler, Post Office Box 49. Allow me to introduce Mr. Brian Thornton. He's here tonight on behalf of the applicant. Mr. Thornton has acquired the property for the continuation of the same use that has been used for some period of time. The use will not change. The conditions that were recommended by staff are acceptable. He can respond to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Seeing no one moving, I'll close the public hearing in favor and open the public hearing in opposition. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? At this point in time, I'll close the public hearing on this matter. Planning and Zoning Board, do you have any questions of the applicant or staff?
I have a question of the staff. So you said that it was initially M2, which
M1.
M1,
Yeah.
okay, then which converts to.
In the 80s, it was rezoned from residential to M1.
To M1, when we converted everything to out of M1s, it went to PUD, okay. And so how did the ball get dropped? I'm trying to figure out.
It wasn't that it was dropped, it's just that that subdivision never developed. It
Okay.
never came back through to have all the smaller, what you would call contractor buildings, smaller buildings that would be developed on less than 2 acres. And I believe that the reason it never was is because the requirement was to put sewer in. So the moment you started to develop small lots, you would have to go 4,000 feet, linear feet to tie into the sewer. And that was probably prohibitive. And so the property developed as a whole, rather than develop as individual lots.
Okay, but still, as a whole, as a PUD as a whole, how did the trucks get on there? I'm trying to figure out how did trucks.
So whoever bought it was in zoned industrial, so it was an industrial use in an industrial district. The base zoning for the PUD was industrial.
Okay.
And the prior zoning
Base
was also
zoning.
industrial.
Okay, I got you.
So you would still be allowed to use those same uses.
Okay.
It's just that the subdivision never developed.
Okay, so the base zoning of the PUD was light industrial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Specifically for those buildings.
So right now, we're trying to clean it up to say.
Yes.
So what happened? You just recently purchased the property. Is that what happened? Is that when he went through for his business license, is that what caught it?
Business license, and also they realized that the back property was still residentially zoned, but it was being used all of these years to store vehicles on while they were being repaired.
Okay.
So that's a residentially zoned property, and that's, we would prefer to have continuous zoning on the whole property so that it complies with all the code.
All right, so this should clean that up.
So this is housekeeping, yeah.
All right, I'm a little clearer now. I'm trying to figure out how we go from residential to trucks, but
right.
That's a long ways. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, planning and zoning? Hearing none, Madam Vice Chair, I'll throw it to the commissioners for any questions you may have.
Board of Commissioners, do you have any questions for applicant Z 2023-32 or for the staff? Being none, I'll turn it back over to you, Chairman Simmons.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, at this point in time, I would like a recommendation on the rezoning Z 2023-32, please.
It's Brandon Penniman. I make a request to approve the rezoning of application Z 2023-32.
Frank Payne, second.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? See?
With all findings and conditions as read in by staff.
There are no conditions on the rezoning.
Findings.
There are only findings. All in favor of approving Z 2023-32, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Madam Vice Chair, it comes to you with a unanimous approval on the rezoning Z 2023-32.
Thank you, Chairman Simmons. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation to approve Z 2023-32 for rezoning from residential low density to light industrial. Do I have a motion?
Madam Vice Chair, I make a motion that we approve the rezoning of Z 2023-32.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Have a motion and a second. If there's no discussion, all in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion carries unanimously to approve Z 2023-32. And Chairman Simmons, I'll return it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Board, since the rezoning was approved, I now need a motion on the special use permit S 2023-33 with the findings and conditions.
Go ahead.
Chairman, this is Rob Thomas. It's a motion to approve S 2023-33, request to special use permit to allow for truck repair, parking, and storage located at 11030 Veterans Memorial, with all the findings and conditions read in by staff.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote on S 2023-33 to approve the special use permit. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Vice Chair, it comes to you, S 2023-33, special use permit, unanimous approval from Planning and Zoning.
Thank you. Board of Commissioners, we have a recommendation to approve S 2023-33 for a special use permit to allow for truck repair, parking, and storage. Do I have a motion?
Madam Vice Chair, I make a motion that we approve S 2023-33 per the recommendations of Planning and Zoning Board with the conditions.
I second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a motion and a second. Being no discussion, all in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion to approve is unanimous. And Chairman Simmons, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you very much. Having nothing else to come before the Planning and Zoning Board tonight, I will declare our meeting adjourned.
Board of Commissioners, is there any further discussion to come before the board? Being none, this meeting is adjourned.